Hello everyone, welcome back to the Captain Logan Show. 'Tis I, Captain Logan, and joining me as always is my wonderful chat moderator and producer, DJ Martinez. DJ, welcome back to America.
Hello. Thank you for having me. Thank you for letting me back in the country, America. I'm very grateful. I had a negative COVID test before I left Mexico, so I was able to come back, and I'm so happy. I've already been talking to the people in the live chat. They've been very welcoming. I missed you guys.
So was that your first time out of the country at all?
No. We went to Jamaica in, ironically enough, March 2020, right before everything shut down.
I remember that, yeah. And how has that been 2 years?
Oh, I have no idea, dude.
That's
in some ways it feels like yesterday, in some ways it feels like a decade ago.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
I had that with Germany. I did that almost 5 years ago now.
I remember that. That was a fascinating video you made about that.
I forgot I did a video about that. I did, yeah. I wish I'd shot something over there.
Oh, that would have been cool. Like a little shop or something?
Yeah. But tell us a little bit about your trip. You said Mexico, so of course you left the country, but not the continent. And what was Mexico like?
Mexico is awesome. I highly recommend it. People are super nice. People are cool. People are like more quiet and reserved. They weren't like all in my face. Even like when we went to like shops and markets and stuff, they weren't like trying to sell me like right up in my face like usually they are when you go to like the touristy parts of other countries. But they were super nice. We went to a lot of crazy stuff. We went to some Mayan ruins, which was really cool. Made me want to watch Road to El Dorado again. And we went to a lot of cenotes, which are these giant sinkholes from like thousands of years ago that are like all filled with water now, and you can like jump off cliffs into them, which was a lot of fun. And they like connect under water in caves, and you can go under swimming through the caves and stuff. I swam in a cave full of bats, which was really cool.
Man, that's so cool.
They picked me up out of the water, and I floated up to the top of the cave. No, that didn't happen. But
he went to Mexico to make a Snyder film.
No, I went to this. Okay, there's this one theme park called Explore. If you go to Mexico, you have to go to this. Way better than any theme park in America. There's like no rules. You can do whatever you want. There was like these crazy zip lines.
You can punch a dude in the face. It's amazing.
It was like zip lines into water. You could like swim underwater in caves. They gave you. I need to send you some pictures. They gave us these. You could literally like drive real jeeps, like Jurassic Park like jeeps, through the jungle. And we were like into caves. They could go in the water and stuff. Like it was so much fun.
Amazing.
It sounds like it would never fly in America, but it was the funnest theme park I've ever been to.
Yeah, I saw a commercial last week on Paramount Plus, because even though that's a service I pay for, and I hate that I'm still paying for that, like it's like a shot in the arm every time I have to pay for that. But there are some things that I have to have that for access that I don't have anywhere else anymore, especially because Netflix took so much Star Trek down. I digress. I saw a commercial there, DJ, for a Nickelodeon theme park in Mexico.
Yes, I saw that.
Did you?
We drove by that, yeah. It was like a resort. I think you could stay there, too.
Is Mexico like 30 miles across? Because it sounds like you saw the entire country.
Well, we had to fly into Cancun. We went to Tulum for most of our stay. But yeah, Cancun's the big area, so it's probably close.
I just thought that was so weird, where it's like, see your favorite characters and walk through these amazing worlds. And here's all this stuff with SpongeBob, and then Mexico. I was like, all right.
Yeah,
sure.
I didn't want to do the resort thing. I wanted to go more. So my wife got us all these Airbnbs that were like literally in the jungle, which was really cool because I don't like going to another country and then just like staying in an American resort the whole time. It's like you didn't even see the country.
What the heck's the point?
That theme park was like the only thing that we did that was like kind of touristy. Everything else we were like off the grid in like the jungle, and it was really fun. I highly recommend it. It's a super cool trip.
Well, of course, you're a real adventurous, physical activity kind of guy. So if you go on vacation, you're going to like swim or hike or run or bike or that sort of thing. And I need to do a trip like that. I've never done that. Everything I've ever done has been real touristy and real, sit around and have people bring you things. It's always been that sort of thing.
You know what we should do?
Yeah.
We should both go.
So that we can swim on camera? Do you want to go to Mexico so we can swim on camera?
No, we should go to Oregon so we can see Connor, and also the hiking there is incredible. I went there on my wife's birthday last year, and
Oh
it's
wow.
gorgeous out there.
I'm absolutely game. Yeah.
It's so cool out there, and it's in the States. We can make that happen.
Sure. I've been there. To the States.
But anyway,
Well, and there's lots of cool places I'd like to take you if we ever were able to, especially if you and I ever had the time. I don't know how we would with kids and stuff, but like if we ever had time to get in a car and do a road trip like I've done with Eric and Brandon, I'd love to get you to the Superman Museum in Metropolis, Illinois, which a place I take everybody to. I'd love to get you to my stomping grounds in Arkansas. There's some great hiking there too. There's a mountain that's a mile away from where I used to live that some of my family is actually buried on. That's got some really great hiking. It'd be fun to take you there.
Absolutely.
But yeah.
Yeah, the problem is we have to be jerks and leave our wives with all the kids, but we got to make that happen at some point.
Someday.
Even if it's
when
just for a
neither
few
of us
days.
where all of our kids are out of the house, so you're in your 40s, I'm in my 50s. And,
Yeah, when we're ancient and can no longer hike or swim.
I'm ancient and you're like meta ancient.
I know. I turned 30 this week. I'm an old geezer.
But happy birthday, man.
Thank you.
Now, I think mid-30s is the sweet spot. I mean, I think there's a lot of interesting things about getting older. I've always wondered what I would look like at various stages of life, and if it is indeed true for me as it is for a lot of men that you get more distinguished as you get older. That's kind of the trade-off, I think, for being born a man as opposed to a woman, where people don't typically fuss over how beautiful you are, but as you get older, you look cooler. So that's sort of the trade-off. So I've always kind of hoped that I have that. I'm actually excited about my hair graying. Like it's starting to on the sides, and people have noticed that and said that I'm starting to look like Mr. Fantastic, and I think that's cool. So I don't mind getting older, but I do think because I always thought mid-20s would be the sweet spot, but I look like a little kid in pictures and stuff, and I still couldn't decide if if I'd grown up or if I was still kind of a kid playing at being an adult. And I don't have that anymore, despite what I do for a living, and it looking like I'm still just being a kid and playing all the time. But I don't know. I think 30. If I could be locked in an age, I think it'd be 33, 34.
Yeah.
Stay there.
Yeah, I think that's happening with me. I definitely look like a little kid in my 20s, so much so that they let me on the set playing a high school kid in Homecoming, even though I was 25.
They might not do it now.
No, they would not do it now, and they shouldn't, rightfully so.
Well, anyway, it sounds like you had a wonderful vacation, and your wife was super cool for setting that up and taking. She did that for his birthday.
Yeah, if you ever need a trip planned, just ask her. She is the best trip planner ever. She's really good at it. It was a lot of fun.
I was talking about this last week where I told Dan I'm always jealous of you guys when you post vacation photos because you guys always look like so much cooler than me. Like me and my wife. Like you guys go on vacation and it's like, wow, these guys go and do things.
Well, we try. We don't do anything most of the time. So when we go on vacation, we try to live it up.
It's a big deal. And then that's when you actually post pictures. So it looks like you guys are having a 24/7 adventure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to post pictures of me just sitting at my desk in this room
eating soup
every day.
Well, anyway, everybody, thanks a lot for being here for this evening's edition of the Captain Logan Show. Here in just a little bit, we're going to have a lead-in topic. I'm going to revisit, this is a thing I've talked about before, but I'm going to revisit what I think it might take these days to convince people to read comics that have never read them before, how to get people, new readers into comics. This is a suggestion from, who asked me to do this? John Ty on the public Discord, and I was asking for possible suggestions for topics tonight. So we'll kind of do an old GNN topic, and this is a thing that occasionally will pop back in, and I think it's worth talking about again because the climate of the culture is changing so rapidly, and the way people look at superheroes and comics and things is always evolving. So I'm going to chat about that a little bit, and interested to hear you guys' thoughts on that as well. A couple of quick announcements before we go ahead and get into the show. Tonight will be, after that, mostly an Ask Me Anything show, so leave your questions and comments. Make sure to tag DJ there in the comments live, and he will read your as many comments as possible. If you want to make sure that your comment is talked about, your question, your concern, your topic, you can leave a super chat in any dollar amount, and we sure appreciate anybody who has done or ever will do that. You guys kind of keep the train moving along here on Geekvolution, and it means a lot to us. We really appreciate it. But we'll get to some pre-written stuff as well. Don't feel horribly excluded if you can't or not interested in doing that. We are going to have an After Dark tonight. We haven't done that in a few weeks, and we try to do that twice a month as much as possible. So a little behind on that. Got to get to that tonight. We're just going to do a fun topic show tonight. I asked the panel to all bring a topic. I have one. I can't remember what my topic is, but I know I have one. And we're going to talk to some patrons live for at least an hour. That's an uncensored show. We talk about things we don't usually talk about on the channel, and it can get kind of fun and crazy. Brandon should be there. Dan should be there. DJ is going to try to pop in for at least a little bit, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Austin can't make it tonight, but it sounds like we already have a big panel. So it's weird, DJ. The biggest panel we always have, because I don't even do a lot of panel shows anymore, we always have a big panel for After Dark for some reason. The show that only, 70, 80 people watch because of Patreon is where, like, the most of us are there at one time.
Yeah, we almost outnumber the viewers for that show.
That's true. The live viewers, anyway, yeah. Because more people come and watch it afterwards, but we tend to have about a dozen watching with us as we do those live. But anyway, we're going to do something we haven't done in a while, DJ. Not a Super Chat goal, but we are going to let the top Super Chatter tonight pick something, so help me, of course, at the end of the show, tally that up and figure out who that is. Tomorrow night, Austin and I are going to do another, thank you very much, another blind mini marathon, and we could not decide what we wanted to do it on. We had several ideas, and we were kicking different things around, and we were indecisive. So we thought, let's let one of the viewers pick. So tonight's top Super Chatter gets to pick between 6 different animated superhero TV shows. And he picked 3, I picked 3, and I haven't written this down anywhere, but as we go along, I'll try to put this in the description. So Austin wants you guys to pick between MTV Spider-Man. We are going to do that at some point, even if it's not tomorrow night. But that was the one we were going to do, and then we thought it might be fun to let you guys pick. But there was a short-lived Spider-Man series in 3D animation in the early 2000s that was on MTV with Spider-Man voiced by Neil Patrick Harris. It's a really interesting show. There's a lot of good stuff in that. Animation is dodgy, but it should be kind of fun to go back and revisit watching blind if somebody picks that. He also asked for Superman the Animated Series and Danny Phantom, which is a show that I've never seen. And then I wrote down X-Men, the animated series, because I can't believe we haven't done one of those yet. And Austin has hardly ever seen that show, so it'll be fun to see his reactions to some of the silly, crazy things that happen in that show live. Batman Beyond, and the third thing, I couldn't decide for a third thing, so I went with the Spawn HBO show, because I thought it might be amusing to show. I don't know that Austin's ever seen that. I thought it might be amusing to show the Day Ghost that, and for me to go back and revisit it. Besides the pilot, which I've gone back to for the first time since 2013, doing Spawn year, might be fun to do that.
The dark days of Geekvolution.
Yeah, and that I think is still available on. Yeah, but it doesn't feel that long ago. Once again, like we were talking about earlier, I think that is available on HBO Max. But anyway, so those are the 6. Like I said, I'll put those in the description. So if you want to get to pick between those, leave some super chats and try to be the top super chatter. And once again, thanks everybody for participating and for helping support the channel. But once again, no pressure. Don't feel the need to do that if you're not interested or you don't want to. So those are the same thing. So let's talk now a little bit about getting new readers into comics, and I want to start with DJ. DJ, I don't know if I've asked you this. I don't remember what your response is, so we'll do it again if we've done this before. I know you're not as avid a comic reader as I am, not a big comic reader, but I know that you have and sometimes read comics. What was your comic experience growing up? Did you read? These are the 2 big questions. Did you read comics as a child, and what was your introduction or the gateway drug that made you consider looking at more of the medium? So not specifically a series that you kept on and reading, but what made it so that you might, instead of watching a TV show or playing a video game or watching a film or something, reading a book, specifically reading a comic book?
I don't think I ever have answered this. This is fascinating. Well, I hope. I don't know. You be the judge. So
look at 193 shows now. We probably repeated numerous conversations.
I I grew up with comics in the house. My dad was an avid collector back in the 70s. He has a like an almost complete original Shang-Chi run from the 70s, and he had a ton of early Marvel stuff. Unfortunately, his mother kind of gave them all away for free, as all mothers do at some point if you leave your stuff in their house. And so I knew of comics. My dad would take me to shops. We had some cool comic shops in Erie, Pennsylvania. Shout out where I grew up. Um, Books galore. Well, every time I visit, I still go there. It's a really cool shop. It's also a used bookstore.
Wow, that's really cool that it's still there because bookstores don't tend to last
Yeah, it's
these
been there for
days.
decades. So yeah, really cool. But I was not a big reader. I watched superhero TV shows, and I would go to the store, and like every time I would go to the store, I'd get like a comic. I wouldn't know what series it was from. I wouldn't have multiple in a row. It would just be one. So I would read it. I would mostly look at the art because I was a kid who was really big into art, and I would draw superheroes all the time and study the muscles and how to draw them, which is mostly what I looked at for in my comics. I only had Marvel stuff. I had one Batman comic for some reason. It's like the Nightfall arc where it's like Bane on the front with like a giant machine gun
Yeah,
from the 90s. That's the only Batman or DC comic I ever
that's
owned.
an early one. That's funny.
I only owned Marvel stuff. I took a lot of my dad's like Spider-Man stuff from his, like I have some of the cool 80s black suit Spider-Man, like the first issue where you see him like standing on top of the building, and the one where he's from Kraven's Last Hunt where he's breaking out of the grave. So I have a lot of those iconic ones that are still in my head. But I just had like a handful of comics. I didn't read a series until 2000 rolled around, and they started putting out Ultimate Spider-Man and Ultimate X-Men, but I didn't have the original issues. What they did was they put out these like magazines. I don't know if you saw these.
Yeah, I
They
have
put
one
out
of
these
those.
double issue magazines that have one issue of Ultimate Spider-Man and one issue of Ultimate X-Men, and they were in like the magazine section at the grocery store. And I would get one of those every month because they would come out monthly. And I got up to like issue 8 of those, and I was like, okay, I need to finally get into this. So then Ultimate Spider-Man is the first like run that I read.
And I seem to recall those being slightly oversized.
They were like big magazines, and
Yeah.
they were different kind of paper too. They were
And I
like
remember being
magazine
really yeah, and when I got my hands on that, I was not reading Ultimate Spider-Man, and I had heard about that, but I didn't know how it was being published. So I was confused by that because for a minute I thought that's just how they put those out, where you got
That's what I thought, yeah.
Ultimate and X-Men at the same time every month, and those were they reprinted or did they do that at the same time?
I don't know.
Is that just
I
how
haven't
they did it for
looked
the
into that.
newsstand version? I honestly don't know the answer to that.
That was honestly really cool. I wish they would do that. That's a cool way to get people that weren't really big into comics like me, because I was right there in the line, and I was like, Mom, can I get this? This is awesome. Because I got Wizard magazines that way too. Like I used to get Wizard magazines.
We actually are seeing more of that from, I don't know if Marvel's doing it. I don't think they are, but the DC side, at least for a while, was putting out some, and I remember if those are oversized or not, but they were putting out these magazines that would have like 3 or 4 issues, particularly during Rebirth. They were doing some of that where it was like a kind of a sampler thing where it was trying to get new readers into comics, and they would give you, it wasn't like Free Comic Book Day where they gave you like 6 pages of an issue, but they give you like a whole bunch of different sets of that. You're like, I'm not getting any material here. They would be complete issues, but it would be like a $10 magazine. It would have like 3 or 4 issues in it. So that has come back some,
Cool.
and that just reminds me of what you were talking about, because comics aren't, at least around here, I mean in this country, around these 50 states,
Around these parts.
aren't as much in, of course, like grocery stores, but Walmart made a big push for a while, trying to start carrying comics again. And I think there's still some of that, I'm not sure. And they even did a cool thing where some of the DC direct-to-video movies that were based on comic arcs they would do editions. And I didn't buy any of these, but I kind of like to have some of them just for the collection. They would do a release where it would have the movie along with the comic it was based on. They'd release it together.
That's cool. I just remembered I lied. Before Ultimate Spider-Man, my dad did have a complete run of the Secret Wars, the original Secret Wars. So I read that whole
that's cool.
series.
I have
All
most
those,
of
I read
that
12 issues.
in first printings. I think I'm missing 2 or 3 maybe.
Yeah, so that was the first series I read, which was not easy to just pick up and read because it was you had to know a lot already. But I had watched the superhero shows, so I knew most of it. But
How much would you say this has just turned into me interviewing DJ about comics and, his foray into superheroes? But how much do you think that experience had to do with you overall appreciating and getting into the superhero thing? Or was it just they were there, but it was really more about the TV side?
yeah, I think I can't separate. I can't even put my finger on when I became into superheroes. Superheroes was always my thing. I always watched the shows, the Raimi movies. Like my entire room was always decked out with like superhero bed sheets and superhero painted walls. Like my walls were red and blue with like the wallpaper Spider-Man thing through the middle, and I had like my room is always superhero stuff. And I don't think I didn't put like movies over TV or TV over comics or anything. It was just like superheroes, and I didn't really have a preference for medium. I think well, and I say TV. I didn't have TV as a kid.
You told me that. Yeah.
We never had cable, so I would catch like an episode on Saturday morning, like on local, sometimes, or I would buy the DVDs where they would release a couple episodes, like the Daredevil episode of Spider-Man. So like, I wasn't like overwhelmingly. It's not like it was stacked up a bunch of TV and like a few comics. They were pretty even because it was sparse on that end too. But I was just so into it that anything I could get my hands on, like I would buy the Marvel encyclopedias and just like read about all the characters. Big trading card kid, like I would get all the trading cards. Like I would go to the trading card place and buy. They would sell the whole box of the you know how you're supposed to open the box and then like people pick all the packs out and buy the packs. This guy sold the whole Marvel superheroes box, so I have like the whole collection of those trading cards, and I still have them. They're really cool. But yeah, I would just like to know the origins and the stats and everything. So yeah, I think comics was just a way for me to look at my favorite superheroes and see them doing stuff.
Yeah, and when I was a kid, and of course I'm older than you, but not a whole lot. Not like Austin, where I'm almost old enough to be his dad.
Austin said he felt old in the Discord the other day, and I wanted to punch him in his face.
What do we have, a bunch of 8-year-olds in the public Discord? I don't...
Well, he said his one of his friends was getting married. I'm like, so we got kids over here, man. Live your life.
When I was a kid, I think most of the kids I knew that were into superheroes read comics to some degree, and I would bet real money, of course, that is not the case these days with a lot of kids that were my age when I was getting into comics, 8, 9, 10. Jason reads comics, but he's grown up with me, and I have them, and I give them to him to read. And I think these days it's, for lots of reasons, obviously a lot of kids aren't reading as much in general, but also that's an itch that you can scratch in numerous other ways, and a lot of people are, of course, very invested in screen continuities for characters that we didn't have that for when I was a kid. And so I think it's maybe harder these days, not just to get adults into reading comics, of course, but even kids, where it's like, well, they've already got that fix, and you're asking them to get into other continuities that aren't connected to the stuff they're looking at. They could be confused, not just because, as we've talked about a million times, comics can be a really difficult thing to penetrate because it's complex and there's a lot of history, and I'm talking primarily Big Two, of course, with Marvel and DC, where you might feel like you have to know all of these characters and all of this continuity and everything that's ever happened before, and we're coming up on 100 years of history for some of these characters. It boggles the mind to consider. So it's already a difficult entry point as a medium, just trying to get into characters that you already like on the screen side. But also, when you look at especially the MCU, there's so much of that material, it's getting difficult to keep track of all of it, and it might be difficult for kids now, I'm talking, 9, 10, 11, that maybe have grown up with some of those movies, or maybe are just now starting to look at that stuff, to even have time to watch and appreciate and commit a lot of the history and characters and lore and stuff to memory, just for the screen side. So, I mean, it's as challenging, or more so, to maybe I want to say keep the medium going. I know that somehow, apparently, I've not looked real deep into this. It seems like the medium is on somehow, at least monetarily, an uptick again, and I don't understand that because hardly anybody I know is reading new right now. So, like, I don't want to get deep into that because I haven't done very much research lately. I've not been keeping up with current, as I've mentioned a lot on this show at the moment. But I do think it's a real different animal than it was when you and I were kids. So, and even though you're younger than I am. So, DJ, if you were having to answer this question, like, what would be the first thing you would do to maybe somebody that seems like if they would just get into the medium, there are, because I hesitate because I'm not suggesting we need to like proselytize and make it a religion and try to get everybody that's not reading comics to read comics. But at the same time, there are lots of wonderful stories, of course, told in comics, old and new, that are either not being transferred to other media, that haven't had adaptations yet, or that have had really crappy ones, or where it's just been very different stories that are being told, where it's like, this should be looked at. I have this with my wife sometimes. It's a little frustrating. She struggles with getting into the comic medium, not because like, oh, it's too much to keep up with, but just if you hand her a single standalone graphic novel or something where it's like, this is all you need, it's difficult to get her to read it even if you know she'll love the story, because she is a rapid reader. She reads too fast. She blows through panels. She doesn't know how to slow down and read it as the visual kinetic medium that it is, and that drives her crazy. She doesn't want to, if she's going to take the time to read a thing, she wants it to take longer as she's absorbing more material. She doesn't want it to be able to read a whole page in 5 seconds. And so if you had somebody like that, where there's a story, DJ, that you know they would love, but that's the only medium for it, for whatever reason, what would be the first step? How would you try to get them to look at that material?
I don't know, because I don't have a problem with the medium itself, except for I do have a problem where my eyes wander, and yeah. I can't avoid spoilers. Like if there's a panel over here, like as soon as I flip the page, my eyes go and like scan the whole thing. Like that's why I actually like digital, because I can go panel by panel.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't have a problem. My wife actually, she has no problem with the medium either. Like when we started dating, she was reading a lot of comics, and actually the most comics I ever read was when we started dating, because we were both kind of getting into it together.
Interesting. That's cool.
But it's not something she grew up with, so it's kind of hard to start that habit, you know. So she just, because you just go back to what you're used to. You go back to film, television, and books and stuff. But she had no problem reading them. But yeah, I don't know. I guess you gotta say, trust me. Like, yeah. I know you, and you will like this, just because that's what you did. I remember you did a with Adam, not Adam, Aaron and Danae. You had them read Marvels, and neither of them were comic people. And you're like,
years ago now.
You have to just trust me, and they did, and they read it, and they both loved it, and like that's you kind of at least got to get one in there. You got to have them read Watchmen or Marvels, or like maybe not Watchmen. Maybe that's a hard one to start with, but
Aaron called it one of the best experiences he had at that time. This was years ago. This is probably 7 or 8 years ago. He had ever had with media. Period.
Yeah, but he's not going to start reading comics now. It's just like
probably not. Yeah, and the only reason I was able to get him to read that was because we were doing a show where we each got a turn and we got to pick a thing. Mm-hmm. And so if I picked a comic, they had to read a comic. That was the agreement.
But yeah, I think most people, I mean, if they know you close enough, they'll probably trust you to at least try it. And I can't imagine you having like such a horrible experience with a comic that you would kind of be turned off from the medium.
Yeah, but you might not be compelled. You might not be compelled to, keep looking for more comics to read.
Yeah, that's the problem, because if you give someone like a complete graphic novel like that, then they're like, okay, I don't need to read anymore. Like that doesn't whet their palate to, and maybe Marvels, because that has like some throwbacks to 60s Marvel stuff that might pique your interest, but like,
Yeah, but like, is that going to make you want to go back and read, or does that look like homework? You know what I mean? Like, are you going to want to go
yeah.
back and read old, 60s Stan Lee comics, or does it kind of scratch that itch enough where you felt like you've read one now? And it's like, okay, I've kind of had that experience
Been
because
there, done
this
that.
is, and you haven't, but I mean, but how are you going to know? You're not acclimated. I've had this experience with these golden or silver age characters, and told in a digestible, modern kind of way, where it's also contemporary. I mean, that book's 25 years old now, but I mean, contemporary enough that it's easy to, it resonates, and it's easy to get through, even though I've not really read comics before. That's a really good point, that even if you can get a person to read a thing that they'll like, and they love it, let's say you find somebody that would love Klaus or Watchmen or V for Vendetta, or any one of these things is not like the other. Any standalone kind of thing. They might love that experience. They might even buy that book. They might even reread that book over and over again. Doesn't mean they're ever going to look at another comic. Like, does that get them into the medium? But then the question is the way to get them into it a long run, or a continuity that connects to other comics? Or does that, because there's lots of potential turnoffs to that, where you could go, I know you would love the Walt Simonson run of Thor, but is that, proverbial you, just whoever we're talking to. You do need to read that.
I do think I would too.
You would love that. It's some of the best fantasy I've ever read, and I'm not a fantasy guy, but there's a lot of commitments there. There's a lengthy time commitment. There's a monetary commitment. There's the potential turnoff of when the book was written, and potential. I mean, it sounds silly maybe, but like language barriers and stuff, where it's just, to some degree, written differently than modern stuff you might look at now. All these things could potentially turn a person off, or be prohibitive in some way. And then the fact that you don't have to go read a bunch of other books, but there's some cross here and there in the Marvel stuff. You might go, I'm not really interested in the grander mythology, the grander, story of the Marvel universe or whatever. And then again, with people currently, there's a lot of people that think they've already had the, grand Marvel experience. Why do I want to have to get into another continuity, start all over? Or even, I'm confused, why are these characters different? Why does Iron Man not act like he does in the movies? How come Star-Lord doesn't have the helmet I'm used to? That sort of thing. Like, these could be turnoffs to people, where it's like, I mean, I'm sure most people, to some degree, understand that comics and movies are different things. That they're not necessarily, maybe some people don't get that, but that they're not necessarily going to be in the same continuity, that things from 30, 40, 50 years ago didn't know about the MCU yet. They read differently, but all of that also could kind of be a turnoff.
Yeah, I wish. Yeah, if that happens, that kind of annoys me, because like, when I watch Benedict Cumberbatch in Sherlock, and then I go watch Robert Downey Jr. in Sherlock Holmes, like, I don't expect it to be the same thing. Like, you adapt characters differently. Like, that's just so in my mind that it's so weird to me that people would be turned off by slight differences like that. But yeah, I guess.
But also sometimes major differences. But also, like, I think it's generally understood that these are, at least, a lot of them, some of these are modern characters, but that with Marvel specifically, and even obviously DC, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, whatever, these are classic characters that are being adapted. But if you first learned about it, or got sucked into it because of a particular version of it, that's like your version. So when you go look at other things, it might feel like weirdly inauthentic, like going backwards, or even superficially. I mean, I got that Iron Man was a character from earlier, but he's fighting all these villains I've never seen before. Where are the few Iron Man rogues gallery that I've seen Iron Man fight before? And how come there's all these other villains that I am familiar with? I thought they were Spider-Man villains. Whereas Sherlock Holmes has been in the public consciousness for so many bazillions of years that I think even people that have never read a Sherlock Holmes book are kind of aware that whatever they're looking at is like the umpteenth iteration of Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
It doesn't help that Iron Man has never been rebooted, that there's one screen version of that. You know what I mean? Like Batman, people expect to see a lot of different kind of variations on that.
Yeah. I guess but because those have been in my head since I can remember. So like they've always just been characters over versions.
Daniel Davis says not everyone's smart. Agreed.
Well, that's the conclusion we've come to with this conversation.
So,
no, I think the way to get into it, when you're trying to get into a new medium, it's one of the hardest things. Like if you didn't grow up reading, first of all, if you didn't grow up reading, it's really hard to get into reading. If you didn't grow up with comics, like even I grew up a little bit with comics, but it wasn't like a tradition. It wasn't like a thing that I did. I didn't even grow up with TV. I grew up with movies. We had, like I said, we didn't have cable. We rented a movie every Friday and had pizza. And that was like our family thing. So I will never have a problem with movies. That's just in my DNA. But TV,
or
I
pizza.
didn't get into.
You'll never have a problem with pizza.
I didn't get into TV. I'll have some digestive problems with pizza in a few years. I'm already 30, guys. But I didn't get into TV until
best years of your life, man. I promise you.
So I met my wife, and she's a huge TV person, and I started getting into TV after I met her. So I think the best way to get into a new medium is you need a community. I think if you have a community that you are constantly discussing things with and talking with, and like they're reading the same things as you, kind of like a book club, I think that's the way that you could get into, especially or like any kind of medium, but comics especially. If you have I see the guys in the Discord, they're like reading the same comics and they're discussing it all the time, and I think that's a perfect way to get someone into a medium. But it's hard. I mean, some people live in tiny little small towns, and it's easier than it used to be because you got the internet. But
boy, that's a great point. I'm not saying this to toot my own horn, but I have gotten the comment before of I never cared about comics, but I was watching Geekvolution because of X superhero movie or Spawn or Power Rangers or whatever it was, and you guys were having so much fun talking about it and passionate about it. And also, I'm finding people in this community that you guys have that are into this stuff, so I've got somebody to talk to about it that maybe I'll try it. So we've definitely gotten a few people that didn't grow up with comics to start reading comics just because that's one of the big bread and butter things here, and it was more fun for them to watch the videos because they knew what we were talking about and they could look at more of our videos, which is a really neat kind of humbling thing for me that somebody would get into a whole medium just to hear us talk about it, and then they come to you find things in that medium that they love. So you're right, community is a big part of it, and I don't think about that as much because when I was growing up I was kind of a lone wolf with comics. I didn't have comic reading friends. I mean, I mentioned that a lot of the kids that I knew that were into superheroes also read comics, but I didn't actually hang out with a lot of kids that were into superheroes. We didn't have like a lot of other things in common necessarily, but the couple of friends that I had that were big Batman fans, or there was one kid that got me into Spawn when I was like 11, wholly inappropriate, but this kid was big into comics and kind of helped. I was already collecting comics, but really helped cement that for me and facilitate my growing addiction in collecting.
There's a kid in 5th grade, John. Shout out to John from Georgia.
I'm sure he's watching.
He single-handedly got me into Weird Al. At the lunch table, just like singing the songs and like writing them down. I remember he wrote out The Night Santa Went Crazy, like the entire song on a piece of notebook paper, and gave it to me, and I would just like read it because I couldn't look up. I'm sure I could at that point, 5th grade. Yeah, I could probably look up the song at that point, but it was more cool to have the lyrics written from him.
That's great. And I wish you'd been around for the show we did last week, talking about the biopic.
That's insane!
I'm so excited about it. I mentioned this last week.
Did you see?
I'm more excited about that than anything else about to happen, save maybe the Batman.
Did you see his amazing Weird Al comment when someone asked him what he thought of Daniel Radcliffe playing him, and he's like, "Oh, I'm absolutely excited about him. I'm sure it's going to be the performance he's remembered for decades."
That will be the performance he's remembered for. And the other one, I mentioned this last week, but the other great Al quote was, "I said when we made UHF that we would make a new movie every 33 years, and so far we're on track."
That's was amazing.
I love Al. He's amazing. Anyway, yeah, such a good point with Community. We'll go ahead and move on here in just a couple of minutes, but I want to throw out a couple of other potential ideas for you. And you hit on one of the big ones, which is, I don't want to say you're just out of luck if you didn't grow up with a medium and you're trying to read comics in 2021 as an adult, because there's plenty of easing jumping on points with things, but there's also plenty of, like we said, standalone things. There's plenty for you to read, but coming to get used to and appreciate a medium that is not how you were used to experiencing a narrative can be really difficult. So the number one easiest thing is just hook them when they're young. Just get them right out the gate at the beginning. And then the question is, but can you keep kids interested in comics because there's so much else vying for their attention? The kids aren't even watching TV anymore. They're looking at YouTube videos. They're watching Twitch streams. That's what kids are doing now. So and then they'll go to the big Marvel movies. How do you get
artistic kids? That's what you got to do. Because I was always interested because of the art.
Oh, sure, yeah. But yeah, how do you keep kids interested? And I think somewhat ironically, because I'm saying that one of the things that makes it difficult is that you've already got that continuity you're invested in. So why would you care about starting over and reading disparate continuities? That's what Ultimate Spider-Man was for. Was like, you don't have that easy jumping on point for kids that might not relate to 60s woes of teenagers. But if you could do it the same thing in 01 with what Bendis did, maybe you could appreciate it. So I would say that one of the things that helps is if a kid gets especially into a smaller character that there's not as much material on screen for, comics is a way for them to continue to constantly be involved in the world of that character without waiting for the next movie to come out. And that might be a real good kind of gateway into the medium, because that was kind of what I did a lot as a kid, where a movie would come out or a TV show or something, and I would want to soak up everything I could about that character. And when we're talking about just Marvel at large, I'm a fan of Marvel. Okay, well, maybe you wouldn't feel the need to do that, but if a kid liked, say, the Aquaman movie, but like there's that one movie and he hasn't had like a great track record of cartoon shows and things like that, and he doesn't have a lot of movie appearances and stuff, it's like, well, how do I get my Aquaman fix? There's that one movie. Well, he's got decades and decades of material in comics, like Black Panther. I would love to think that there's a bunch of kids that went and read comics because Black Panther was huge, and that might have changed their whole world. And then there's not really a lot of other Black Panther appearances on screen. I mean, there's a little bit, but I mean, there's not a ton. He didn't have his own TV show.
He had a straight-to-DVD Ultimate Avengers movie.
He did, and that movie was all about him, so like that's cool. But
yeah,
he
has a cool appearance in the the Earth's Mightiest Heroes show, I think.
Yeah, but that was only a few years before his movie came out.
Yeah.
So that's maybe one way to keep kids interested, and then for, I guess, kids and adults, but especially adults, a big thing I would say is we've gotten to a point where a lot of people have stopped following that are big into comics, that have stopped following characters as hard and gone more to creators. And if you can find that book that somebody loves, that is, whether it's in the big two, like in superhero continuities, or a standalone thing, creator-owned thing, even whatever it is, and a person falls in love with a story, it might be like with novels where they go, I love this writer, or I love this artist, or both, and I have to get more of the experience I got from that creator. That's probably the best gateway into the medium at large, because now you're looking at lots of different things by some of the same people, and then they might get hooked on a character or on a world or something, or even find a new genre they never cared about before through that through that creator that they were really enamored with. And I think that's what got, especially in like the early mid 2010s, I think a lot of people that were attempting to get into comics would latch onto a creator, and it'd be like, Hickman is everything. I'm going to read everything Hickman ever wrote. You know, there's a lot of people that did that kind of thing.
And artists or creators that cross medium, like I know Neil Gaiman. A lot of people read all Neil Gaiman stuff.
Yeah, no matter what medium he's working in. Mm-hmm.
And I definitely have that with
Bendis,
like, directors.
and
like you said, I get into films that are not in my genre at all because I like the creator.
Yeah, and that also works with IPs too, because one of the big ways to get people into comics is here's a thing you love that like older things that aren't on anymore, but there's a great like sequel or new season in comics or something. So many people reading Power Rangers comics that are not comic people, because that's where not only a lot of current Power Rangers is happening, but also the only Power Rangers so far, because of course Netflix is going to do their shows, and we'll see what that looks like. But the comics are made more for adults than they are even for kids, even though by and large they're okay for kids to read, at least by 9, 10, 11. And somebody that looks at Go-Go and is reading Dan Mora might go, I gotta see what else he's done. And then maybe they find Klaus, and then maybe through Klaus they find Morrison, and then through Morrison he wrote some Batman. Okay, that's interesting. And then they go read Batman, and then that can become just a snowball effect. So those are kind of the three big suggestions that I would make.
Yeah, one for me would be, and I know this isn't everybody, but it's for me, and I think it is for a lot of people of this generation, give people trades. We are not in the same mindset like we were, where we watch single episodes of television, and people don't like picking up one little tiny, even if they have like the series, reading a little tiny story and then having to go to the next one is just not how our brains are conditioned anymore, because everything's serialized. Even television shows, even movies are serialized nowadays. So give people trades, give people complete stories, or at least complete arcs. That was what's really cool about the Ultimate Spider-Man run, is that they're one complete 6-issue arc, and then the next one and the next one, and you feel like you got a whole story in like a couple hours.
And suggest reading digitally, because as much as I love physical comics, and I read mostly digitally myself these days for a lot of different reasons, but I think it's a lot easier of an entry point to hand somebody a tablet, or obviously have them pick up their own tablet and read digital comics in order to lessen the monetary hit, because getting into comics, if you're buying singles or even if you're keeping up with trades, can obviously get really expensive depending on how long of a run you're trying to read, that kind of thing. Somebody might go, I've heard that the Walking Dead comics are a lot more sophisticated and a lot more intriguing and stay good longer than the TV show. I'd like to read those, but I don't have the money to buy, 180 something issues worth of trade. And of course, a lot of those issues are really expensive and hard to get your hands on now. But even with trade, it's like, well, okay, you're looking at $14, $15 a trade, and how many trades are there? The compendiums, by the way, are wonderful, and that's the way to read that if you're going to read it in physical. And those I'm seeing all day long these days for $20. So that is not impenetrable. That's actually a fairly inexpensive entertainment now. But by and large, I would say show people the subscription services for comics and let them try it out. Because I still see people all the time that try to get people into comics through Comixology, paying for single issues. And I'm telling you, new readers are not going to want to do that. I got to pay like $2 or $3 or more in issue, and I'm not even sure if I'm going to like comics. And maybe eventually you'll want to do that for things that you can't read any other way, but get a 30-day trial for Marvel Unlimited, and they're not paying me to say this, by the way, or for DC Universe, and just go through characters you're interested in, or if there's a writer or artist that you've ever looked at that you want to see more of their stuff, and just see what's in the library, because those libraries these days are, both of them, massive, and there's a ton of stuff, and they don't have everything, and sometimes major comic readers, or people like Eric who really know their stuff, get irritated about bits of sections of runs and stuff that aren't there. But especially if you're a novice and you've not read a lot of comics, it will look like the whole universe is opened up to you.
It's overwhelming.
It's overwhelming, and I don't want you to get too overwhelmed, but just look. But you can do. It's easier to find things than it is, obviously, just going to Amazon and buying trades, and you can sample stuff for free. It allows you to read 3 pages of a thing and go, I'm not enjoying this. I don't care about this, and try something else. And I think for anybody that has dipped their toe in and wants to keep trying, I think that's the way to do it. Is the broader subscription services that are relatively inexpensive. Do a free trial, and if you're getting really into something, pay the $10 a month to keep going for it, however long you feel like reading something.
And most libraries, I know people don't know what libraries are anymore, but most libraries have a free comics streaming service.
With Hoopla.
I don't have Hoopla, but I have a different one that I read pretty much the entire TMNT run I didn't stay current. I dropped off at some point, but I read a ton of They had all the Turtles comics on there.
Yeah.
Not you know what I'm talking about. The Walt stuff.
The Boom stuff, the Walt stuff, or not Boom, I'm sorry, IDW, the Walt stuff, yeah.
Yeah. Everyone's saying hashtag team trades. Everyone's chiming in that they love trades in the comic. HB Haga says, drop an omnibus on them. They won't be able to move, so at least they have something to read.
That's hilarious. By the way, Macho Punk there in the comments is a name I don't recognize, but he said he got more into reading comics because of Geekvolution, so glad to help out. That's great.
Yeah. And
wants to know the name of the song from Superhero Rewind. And I have had to...
That's the most asked question.
It is. It's the most asked question on... It's Backyard Super Kid by Justin Roberts. That's the name of that song.
Forget about getting people into comics. You've got people into that song. You've got so many people into that song.
I know. Into this wonderful kid or children's artist who somehow never had kids. And I don't understand that with the songs he writes. It's hard to imagine he's not a father. Or at least he wasn't, 8 or 10 years ago when I saw him live and he said that. Maybe he's had kids since then, but...
Oh, interesting.
I don't know.
We'll have to do a reunion. Geekvolution reunion. That would be a crazy video if you actually, interviewed the guy who wrote that song.
It would, because he doesn't know about that. I tried to get permission at one time.
This with your little YouTube thing?
Yeah, I don't like talking about this publicly. I tried to get permission through because he's on a major label, and I never used a ton of that song, and it never got flagged. So it's 12, 15 seconds, but people that have watched our channel obviously really associate that song with Superhero Rewind, and I felt weird about it after a few years where I was like, I never really got permission to use this song. Maybe I should change it. And I tried, and people revolted, and I was like, well, I'll keep using it until I get a cease and desist or something. The worst that could happen is they all get flagged and I have to take the music out. That would suck, but to be fair, it's my fault. I never got permission to use that song, and to this day, nobody's ever complained. If I've used too much of it in the couple of videos I've done that with, that'll get flagged and I can't monetize it. But that's it. I've never gotten a cease and desist or anything. Maybe I will after talking about it publicly.
Oh no, I hope not.
I'll cut this section of this video, not for copyright, but because I made the mistake of talking about copyright. I'm just kidding. Anyway, that is our lead-in topic, which ended up being that was such a GNN kind of topic.
Oh yeah, classic Geekvolution.
So yeah, well, thanks for talking with me about that, DJ. Really appreciated your insights.
Yeah, sure. I don't get to talk about comics very much. That was fun.
And now,
I do like them. I'm just not an expert.
And now let's go to the phones. Once again, we're going to talk about whatever you guys want to talk about tonight. The top super chatter gets to pick the topic or the show, I should say, for the mini marathon tomorrow night. The list of the 6 shows you can pick from. You don't get to just pick your own. We're going to do one of 6 animated superhero shows that Austin and I each picked 3 for, and those are in the description. So if you are interested in getting to pick that, it's Danny Phantom, Superman animated series, MTV Spider-Man, X-Men animated animated series, Batman Beyond, or Spawn HBO. And if you are interested in getting to pick between those 6, leave some super chats. And if you are the top super chatter, you'll get to pick that. But once again, don't feel like you have to leave a super chat. You can leave a regular pre-written question, and we'll get to hopefully a few of those as well. What are you seeing, Mr. DJ?
And quick update on that: Josh Galisano is in second place, and TH1 is in first place, but only by $1.66. He's beating out Josh. All right.
He sounds like he's calling a horse race right now.
TH1, $5 super chat. What IP would you like to see adapted by a different country than its place of origin? Example, the UK adapting Spider-Man and based in England. You rock. I love how he always gives examples for his questions.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Tom's been asking he's been rocking on these. He's been asking a lot of really, really interesting, like, if you had this, but you tweaked this, you had this different change, or this, I think last time he asked something about, like, setting it in a different era or something. No, nobody's ever asked this one. This is a good one.
I have an answer right off the bat.
Go ahead, yeah.
If you need to think. I
do.
Would love to see a French Spider-Man. I've been watching a ton of French movies lately, and I'm falling in love with French movies. I've got that Jacques Demy box set up there, and I've been watching a lot of his movies. Everybody go watch The Umbrellas of Cherbourg. It is incredible. The French movies are all very low-key, like down-to-earth, like interpersonal relationship, like perfect for Spider-Man. I think like they feel like Spider-Man stories when you watch them, and I think that it would be a perfect fit. And I would love to see him swinging around like downtown France, and because it's beautiful, and even like going to the bigger locations like the Eiffel Tower and stuff. That was like one of the cool things. The only thing really that I liked about Far From Home was like seeing those sights, and the only thing that the actors made the movie for was so they could go see the sights. But yeah, I think a French Spider-Man would be right up my alley, and I think it would be a perfect fit.
And the only reason those actors made that third movie was so that they could meet other actors who have played Spider-Man. That's a great answer. A couple things immediately spring to mind. German Batman.
Oh, yeah.
German Batman. And go back to particularly German expressionism, which sometimes shows up, of course, in Batman stuff. But I'd love to see a, like, period, I don't know, like a 20s or 30s period Batman made by a German creator. I think that could be really cool. And the other one is Japanese Spawn. Because there is a Japanese Spawn, and he's really cool. But I would also love to see a Japanese artist try their hand at Spawn. With specifically, Japanese iconography.
That's awesome. Great answer.
DJ, are you with us? You kind of froze up on my end.
Oh no, am I? Hello?
Okay, I can hear you, but your picture is frozen.
Oh no. Well, I guess they didn't like my answer.
The internet doesn't like your answer. I'm going to call you right back.
All right. Bye, guys.
Okay, let's see if we can get DJ back and moving here.
Hello.
And he's back. And everybody briefly got to see me from 2 different camera angles.
Oh, cool. I love seeing Kat from multiple camera angles.
Wouldn't that make me look really conceited if I did the whole show like that? Where I didn't even cut between angles?
Interview?
So, yeah, just the whole time. And it looks like I'm interviewing myself.
That would be very pretentious, but I'm on board.
It would.
Like it.
It would be so pretentious. It would look like, it'd be like, you can see me from this angle, but I want to always make sure that you get to see both, like my better side, and then full on, profile. Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to stay in Tom world for a little bit, because the next one is also from TH1. He says, speaking of the states, which we were doing exactly 50 minutes ago.
Yeah, that's right. We were speaking of the states.
What would a superhero based on your current city or the one you were born in be like? Powers, name, look, etc. Great show tonight.
I have a cop-out answer for this. Let's hear from DJ first. Do you have a good idea?
An Atlanta-based superhero?
Atlanta-based superhero. Actually. Okay, I'm sorry. You think for a minute.
Go ahead. I need to.
Do you want to hear something crazy?
Sure.
When I was 10 years old, I created an Atlanta-based superhero.
Good, you did my homework for me. I don't have to do it.
Not kidding. And the reason is because I was working on that summer, and my dad and I were watching the Olympics, and the Olympics in 1996 were in Atlanta. And I had never been there.
Yeah,
but
my dad has the shirt.
Does he? But I set it in Atlanta because that's where the Olympics were, and I was just looking for some relatively big city that didn't have a major superhero in comics. And also, I was living in Arkansas. That's where I'm originally from, and that's relatively the South. And so I was like, I feel like I could sort of write that. So I based my cybernetic superhero in Atlanta, Georgia.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, and he was called Cyber Zorp. That was the name. I don't think I've ever talked about this before. That was
Cyber Zorp. This is perfect. And I claim this answer. And
it's as 90s as it gets, right? But that was and he had like this giant bionic like implant over his eye, and just in insane number of guns everywhere, like overt kill.
Oh man, we've got to do that still. A long time ago, we talked about doing.
And that's mine, by the way. I still have. They're water damaged, but I still have them.
Yes, we dig out our old art that we drew as a kid, because I created characters too. I remember this character I had that had like spikes everywhere, and he was like this ice guy. Like, oh, we still got to do that show. I can't believe we haven't done that. I remember you were moving at the time, and you didn't know where your stuff was. But
yeah,
we should do that. But yeah, I imagine an Atlanta-based superhero would be pretty cool. You could have he would have like a southern background, like you would grow up a little bit southern, but he's in a big city and he's got like a tech. If he's like a younger guy, he's big into technology and stuff. I think that could be cool.
Blue Dragon 5, not your best name, Cap. I was 10. No, it's a terrible name.
It's an amazing name.
The reason I named him that is because, and I can't remember what exactly this was, but my dad said that when he was a kid, he either had a nickname or he nicknamed somebody else or something Zorp. Like Zorp was a thing. And so I named that after a thing that my dad told me about. That was the only reason he was called that. In fact, it's probably a better character or a better name if it's just a Zorp. Like, that could be a thing. I don't know what that is. It would have to be quirky. Yeah. But, like, it probably should have just not had the word cyber in it, but it was the 90s.
Yeah, it sounds like the off-brand, like, Walmart version of Morph from, like, it's like if they couldn't get the rights to Morph, they would call him Zorp.
Metalli, would Cyber Zorp fit in Marvel or DC? No, the answer is Image.
That's a very Image-sounding
Of course.
Okay, so what would you do for your
actual
hometown?
He had villains like, what was it? Something Claw, I can't remember. And then there was like White Tigress, who was like femme fatale, who is your obligatory, like, maybe a hero, maybe a villain kind of character. And yeah, some of that's coming back to me now.
It's basic. We need to talk about this at a later date. I'm very interested.
Yeah, I'll have to revisit that material to remember all the characters. But he had a sidekick, and I can't remember what the sidekick was called now.
Man, if we were best friends as kids, with you being a writer and me being an artist, we would have made so many comics as like little kids.
I would have had art in my comic book.
His comic books are just words, just panels and words.
Well, I knew I couldn't draw, and I didn't know how to do. I'll talk about all this again if we ever make that video, but I didn't know how to do like kinetic panel-to-panel art, so I made it a magazine, DJ. So instead of a comic book, you'd get like a 2 or 3 page story that I hand wrote, and then everything else was like puzzles you could do, or like just pin-ups of characters that I drew and that kind of thing. Like, I tried to make it a comic, like a magazine instead of a comic book.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Look at you with messing with layout. A designer you could have been.
Well, probably not. That was the whole reason I went with that in the first place. But yeah. So the easy answer for me, and I've talked about this before, is for the Midwest, for Kansas, is Tornado Man, who is another character I made up when I was a kid, and actually even earlier than that. And I've considered doing something with this character. I did a short story based loosely on my coming up with Tornado Man and some other things that happened in my childhood when I was in college that I won a cash prize for in a writing competition in college. But I've never actually done anything with the character as a superhero. but that's but yeah, Tornado Man was a character who I'm trying to remember what exactly it was. I think he like eats or drinks something that is both hot and cold simultaneously, and it turns into a tornado. I can't remember now. But I remember his villain was, maybe I've talked about this. His villain was a huge it was like this giant monster tornado called F10. Cause the system of tornadoes only goes up to F5. So like he's even bigger than that. He's gigantic. He's F10.
Wow. So you were doing what every superhero movie that we've ever had doing already, where the villain is a more insane mirror of the hero.
Exactly.
It's so funny because of how different we are. Like when I created superheroes, I just drew them. Like I was all into the aesthetics and like what they were. You were just making like backstories and stuff.
Yeah,
we really were like complete opposites.
Well, I mean, I draw it, but even it was so under detailed. Even I didn't know exactly what it looked like.
Oh, that's good times. I gotta dig out my folder and look through that stuff. I haven't done that in a while. But great question, Tom.
Yeah,
great
thanks,
question.
Tom.
Very creative questions this evening. Thanks, guys. John Ty, pop it in, $2. Oh, perfect. Should the big two, and I didn't mention this, but this is another big thing that I would have mentioned in our conversation. Should the big two just reboot their comic universe?
At this point, it's hard not to just say yes for a couple of reasons. So, like, would that get more people that have never read comics or aren't real big into the medium to start reading the medium? It's possible that it would help. I don't know. The risk would be rebooting and then making everything too much like movies. Like, you'll never get what I would want, which would be a full-on reboot that was with both of them. And I hate saying Marvel should be rebooted, but I feel that way to some degree even now, just because I've lost interest in both of them, and I don't care what's going on. There's nothing you could say right now that would make me invested in the continuity anymore, because everything changes so quickly and nothing sticks. I read the other day somebody mentioned on the public Discord that they're gonna kill the Justice League in issue 75 of Justice League, and I'm like, who cares? You know, like we kill everything. And we just got done with, I didn't read any of this. I read the first issue of Batman and it seemed fine, but I haven't continued. But anyway, we did that big Future State event, which is another get rid of all of the main characters and pass their mantles to somebody else. And then months later, maybe Future State's still even going, I'm not sure. Months after that, they go, I know what we'll do. We'll kill off the Justice League so that inevitably more people have to show up and take their mantles. Like, we just did that. Like, it's funny how Marvel and DC both keep thinking that that's the big ticket and it never works. You know? Like, people are interested in the characters before they're interested in just the costumes and then just whoever's in them. And it's like, well, we're trying to create more characters that to diversify and stuff, and look and act and sound like a lot more of different kinds of people in the world. And like, I can kind of sympathize with why you would think that would be a good marketing strategy, and why some people would even want that. But the problem is, you're talking about with a lot of the classic characters, like decades and decades of history and continuity and like love for these characters. Every time we try to change, say, Superman, he always at the end of the day winds right back in his original status quo to some degree. Like, we can't even futz with the character that's there. What makes you think you can come up with a new character that people will care enough about that you can completely supplant the original? It's happened. It's worked out a few times with things, right? Like, the people were much bigger fans of Wally West than arguably than a lot of people were of Barry Allen. It works out occasionally, but like, just because you have like representation of different ethnicities or backgrounds or whatever wearing a Batman costume doesn't mean that that's going to take off and you're going to really be able to replace Bruce Wayne. Like, in the grand scheme, I don't know. I think you're much better off coming up with brand new characters that can be this generation's whoever, Batman, Spider-Man, whatever, and that's hard, and it doesn't always, it obviously doesn't always work, but it's just weird that, I'm going on a tangent, it's weird that we keep trying that, because it's obviously, by and large, not really working. If you reboot, that's about the only way that you could kind of have your cake and eat it too, and try to make these worlds look more, at least societally, like the world we live in now. It's the only way you can get away with what both companies seem to want to do, which is a lot of like race and gender swapping and that kind of thing. And let me go on record to say, I don't care about that stuff if the stories are good, but too often it seems like we make it all about that and the story is second, and then stuff just gets generic and kind of who cares. Again, not always. People say great stuff about the original Miss Marvel run. I've just never read that. So I mean, sometimes that stuff is really good. That's also not a swap of any kind. That's a different character that took that mantle. But anyway, I digress. To get me interested in the big two again, apart from just disparate runs that turn out to be good all by themselves that people tell me about that I go check out, to get me invested in any continuity again, yeah, I think you'd have to do that, and it would have to be good. But what you'd really have to do, DJ, and this is the thing I don't think they would do, is not make it just the movies in a comic book. And that would be my big fear with both of them, that they would just borrow too much from movie stuff. I would want to just go back to brass tacks and start with the stuff that made these characters, really resonate with people in the first place, and then kind of go from there and do what New 52 kind of purported to do initially, but was kind of too chicken to really try to pull off. Really actually full-on start over. If you did it right, yeah, it would be a huge boon for comics, absolutely.
Yeah, well, that's why we talked about Ultimate. Ultimate was like the perfect sweet spot that I don't know if we'll ever get again, because there was no Marvel movies out. They were being made simultaneously. Like X-Men came out in 2000, and so did the first Ultimate books, and Spider-Man was 2 years later. Yeah. And that was huge, and that got a lot of people in it, like me, who got into it more. I don't think, like you said, But
man, it helps that started before the Spider-Man movie came out. Imagine if Bendis hadn't tried that until 03 or 04. It would look different. It would have to.
Well, Spider-Man was pulling from Ultimate too, a little bit with the genetic super spiders. But like you said, it wouldn't. I don't think it would get a lot of people who aren't into the medium, but it would get a lot of people who have no problem with the medium, like myself. But my biggest problem with the medium is that it's a continuity laden medium. Like, for me personally, I wouldn't want to reboot a new continuity. I would want to change the way we do it and stop making everything in the same continuity. I just want, like, most of the things I've read are standalone stories. Ultimate Spider-Man, I read the Hawkeye run. That was a short run. I've read the Tim Sale, Jeff Loeb, like, single stories like Spider-Man Blue and Hulk Gray and Daredevil Yellow. Like, that's what I like about comics. I don't need everything to be a big, huge. I mean, just let the story run as long as it needs to, and then get a new artist and let them tell their own story, like, and a new artist and new writer. I don't need everything to be a part of the same, like, universe. Like, I don't know. I just want stories with the characters I like.
I've said this a lot, but the best Batman stories I've read in the last 10 years have almost all, with a couple of exceptions, like the first 40, 50 issues of Tom King, which I still really like. I think it falls off the rails later in a big way. 0 Year, things like that. But by and large, the best Batman stories in the last 10 years have been out of continuity stuff. Like Dark Knight with an N instead of a K, and I think that was the name of that book. And you had... what is the name of that? White Knight. All the good Batman books have Knight in the title, apparently. And I would love to see more of that for other characters. It seems like Batman's constantly got random out of continuity, just a creator trying a thing, and a lot of that stuff is great. I want to see more stuff like Year One, where you have all these different stories that are really character driven, with a creator's vision that's real unencumbered and unabashed, and they're not all in continuity with each other, or if they are, it hasn't mattered yet. And those have been going off and on for quite a while now, like a decade almost, I think. At least 8 years. I forget when Superman started, JMS's book. But I want more of that kind of stuff, and I wish Marvel would do more of that sort of thing. I also think, I've said this a lot, but I also always thought that Marvel should have had an Ultimate Universe that rebooted every 8 or 10 years, so that you could keep getting, and whether it was all, you know, in continuity with each other or not, because I think Ultimate ran into a lot of trouble when it decided that everything Ultimate was going to be in one world, but whether those stories all cross or not, just keep every 10 years or so, 10 or 15 years, doing a new version of your major tentpole characters for a new generation. But like in the 90s, we did a lot more of this with Marvel than we. I guess DC did Elseworld stuff that was like this, but like we kind of flipped it, where later DC did more of this stuff. Whatever happened to things like Marvel 2, which was kind of like Ultimate before Ultimate, where you had, but it was stuff like set in the future, but
and
not
2099.
2099. You had things like Mayday Parker, Spider Girl, where that was in a separate continuity where everything so far in Marvel had happened, but we just like jumped some years ahead, and now Peter Parker is like in his 40s as a cop, and he's got a daughter who has kind of a paralleling, you know, teenage Spider-Man
means it's
story.
okay for him to break the law.
Exactly. Wouldn't it be? I love how we've just commandeered that from a web series.
A YouTube video.
Yeah,
of the movie.
every time that comes up, it's how it should have ended. But anyway, but yeah, just to go back to the original question, like yes, but I also think DJ is right that the real answer is more of just telling stories.
Yeah, like we don't do that with, like, no one thinks it's a good idea when a TV show goes on for 20 years. Like the sweet spot for TV shows is like less than 10 years. So I don't know why we do the same thing with comics. Keep it.
It's because of the tradition.
I know, and I know that. I know there's a lot of bonuses. I know there's some plus sides to that, but I just think we've gleaned all of the good things out of that.
No, I think
the last
we have
100
too.
years that I think we can switch it up and.
Well, and I think Marvel made a mistake, and I didn't really want to see it happen at the time necessarily, but I think Marvel really did make a mistake with Secret Wars for not actually really rebooting the way they talked about it. I mean, there's a lot of things that Secret Wars should have changed that it didn't, and then things got changed anyway, and they came up with different excuses for it, like why Daredevil's secret identity was secret again. And it was like, well, you've got a built-in reason for that, where you just recreated the universe in Secret Wars, but you had to come up with some other thing. Like, why wasn't it that? And it happened at the same time. I don't understand that. But I've talked about this before, but like I really, and that was around when I was starting to get out of New, but I really liked that event a lot and thought it was a kind of a bad idea to try to full on reboot right then, and that seemed like them trying to do Flashpoint into 52, and if they had gone the 9 yards and actually did their own version of New 52 after that, Secret Wars is a better Flashpoint than Flashpoint. And I like things about Flashpoint, but it's, as far as in recreating the universe, the whole thing is really about that, and it could have been great in actually full on rebooting after that. And if they were ever going to do it, that would have been the time. But
yeah. But now, if you do it, just reboot. Don't try to reboot in continuity.
Don't do that anymore.
We've worn that out real fast.
It's fine if you want to destroy the universe in continuity in order to have some kind of an ending with it, although that's not what I would do. I would, like, if you were going to do it, DJ, I would jump to 2099 and
Yellow Hera.
Have a big event where it's just characters in the future, like, I'm spitballing here, like talking about how everybody that's gone now left, and give you just kind of a history of the end of all of that, and then do some kind of like a kind of transition handoff thing. And that's not me saying like make a bunch more 2099 stuff after that. I just think it would be kind of fun if the way you ended that was everything really did get us to 2099, and then we're out of stories to tell there too, because we've done too much there now also.
All roads lead to 2099.
Yeah.
All right. Well, next up is another comic question about the big two. So thank you. This is a $20 super chat from Josh Galisano.
Wow,
Thank you
thanks,
so
Josh.
much. Marvel and DC should go back to having mainstream comics for all ages. These
Yes.
characters were
Yes.
as successful as they were because they carried timeless values and lessons that resonates with all ages, but have adult subtext.
We have, and some people are going to think that I'm being melodramatic for saying this and out of touch or whatever, but this is just how I feel about it. We've forgotten about the children. We really have. And that's not me saying comics shouldn't be for adults. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that we don't have enough variety, and we're living in a day where everything is either the Joaquin Phoenix Joker movie or Paw Patrol.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say.
That's where we're at now.
We've forgotten about the children, but he specifically said all ages.
Yeah.
We don't make anything. We expect like 7 and 8 year olds to just watch adult movies, and anything under that just watches like preschool stuff. Like we don't
just baby stuff. That's it.
There's nothing for them. Like we're growing up our kids too fast.
Not only we're growing up our kids too fast, but we don't think that families want to do anything together. Yeah.
Which is the saddest thing you've ever said.
Yeah, but it's true. And we've like the only real, maybe this isn't true, but I'm going to say it anyway. This is what it seems like in the moment. The only real medium, or I guess that's the right way to put it, that's catering to family really is like board games, family game night. You still hear that all the time, but we're not doing that we're not even doing that with video games. Video games are your super hard R stuff or Lego games, like that, nothing in between. Like that's where we're at. I'm not saying the Lego games are babyish or anything, that adults can't enjoy those. That is closer to an all ages sort of thing. But you see what I'm saying? We need more stuff like Batman the Animated Series, where it's challenging children and adults simultaneously, where we're talking over kids' heads to some degree, but it's also sophisticated enough to make adults think about things, and we can kind of bridge the gap between the ages. And comics were, at one time, great for that. And I would say the sweet spot for that was late 70s, early 80s. That's when it felt like comics were really more for everybody. And that's where that vibe of your, and maybe actually almost more at Marvel than DC, but that's where your vibe of something like Batman the Animated Series was happening in comics, was right then. That's what I feel like every time I go back to that era.
Yeah, when's the last time we got a superhero show that was for all ages?
Doesn't happen anymore. Maybe it will with that new Batman show. I'm hoping so, with the Kid Crusader.
We have Titans, and we have Ultimate Spider-Man. They don't make Earth's Mightiest Heroes. They don't make Batman the Animated Series anymore.
Yeah, or that new Spidey and His Amazing Friends show that's just PJ Masks with Spider-Man. Like, that's all it is.
Oh, PJ Masks. That's like one of the greatest accomplishments, is I've kept my son away from PJ Masks.
Well done. I wish I could have done that. I missed out on that. Because I should not allow my children to go to the grandparents' houses. That's the mistake, really.
That's the danger. They learn about things there.
That's what. Yep. That's the black hole, is the grandparents' house.
Because I hope
none of the grandparents are watching right now.
Well, I only let my son watch things that I watch with him, and I'm not gonna watch that. So, like, I don't.
No, I don't have that. I will, like, I don't have a problem with like good preschool stuff, but like I'll look at it first. But I don't necessarily have to sit next to him every time he watches something. Like,
yeah, that's true. Well, I do let him watch some PBS kids shows. Like some older ones that I grew up with, like Clifford and Arthur and those kind of things. But yeah, gosh, so many good topics are coming in. Like Pixar movies should not be a studio, it should be a genre. Remember family movies?
Remember that?
Why is Pixar the only one making family movies anymore? And Disney, I guess.
Yeah, Illumination certainly isn't doing that.
No, DreamWorks isn't anymore. Remember, I mentioned Road to El Dorado at the beginning of the show. DreamWorks used to make good movies in the very, very early 2000s. Road to El Dorado, Prince of Egypt, like Spirit, like those 2D animated movies they used to do. Now it's like Madagascar 8 and whatever, Kung Fu Panda 4, or I don't know. The Kung Fu Panda movies are okay, but like
Yeah, but they're sticking
whatever
to the
whatever
four
they're
franchise.
doing
How
now,
to Train Your Dragon 19, and yeah,
they got on the IP train and just kind of like pump out those. No more no more family entertainment. I think movie
Puss in Boots 5.
there's a Puss in Boots movie coming out this year. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
There's
I was just
another
trying to
Puss in
think of
Boots
something.
I couldn't believe that. I was like, wow, that's out of nowhere.
No, the big mistake we're still making with the big two in comics that they've just not learned from is we're still. Well, it's in some ways kind of worse now, which is one of the reasons that I'm having a hard time. Besides the fact that I just haven't had time, and my money is going to other things right now, that I've had a hard time getting back into new comics is. We're doing the same thing that we were doing when I was heavy into new stuff, where we've kind of just continued to cater to the base that grew up with comics, where it was there when they were kids, and it was being catered more to children, or at least to kids and adults to some degree simultaneously. I mean, we're like 3 generations removed now. But now what we're doing is we're selling the same things to the kids that grew up with it on nostalgia for the stuff that they loved growing up. Like, how many times have we redone or have we like brought back stuff from Death of Superman and Doomsday and things just to get me to buy it? And how many times have I bought it? Like, too many times. Like, I was part of the problem there for a while. And I can fall in that net too, just like a lot of people. But what'll happen is they'll keep putting out stuff for the base that they have already because it's safe, and then it keeps getting rougher and darker and harder R because those people are getting older and they're wanting more adult things, but they also still want to buy all the things that they grew up with when they were kids so that they don't feel like they've had to grow up, or so that they can keep re-experiencing the past. Somebody earlier in the comments said the Power Rangers thing with Boom is people wanting to relive their childhoods. And respectfully, that's only half true, I think. It's they miss the things they had when they were kids, but they want it to be sold to them like they're an adult. They want it to, they want the same, and I do too to some degree. They want the same aesthetic and mythology and everything, but they don't want little kid stories anymore. They don't want formula. They don't want it to be the same thing every time. They don't want it to be as cheeseball. They want it to get sophisticated. They want it to be like Nolan Batman or Winter Soldier or whatever for Power Rangers. And I think that's the problem we've had with mainstream comics for a good 25 years now or more, at least 20 years. And so that I forget who meant Josh, I think, was the commenter. He's absolutely on point about that, where you can scratch that itch and still make it something that kids can or able to penetrate. I think you can do the same thing, and you also can still have those hard edged things if you want to, but you need to have both. And then what I was alluding to earlier, is what we're getting into now is simultaneously doing that and making stuff for teenagers that aren't reading comics at all. That base is just not there, and it's weird.
Yeah, we just need to widen the net. Like you mentioned 2003 Spider-Man.
And I mean in like a catering kind of way. I don't mean you shouldn't make comics that 16-year-olds would like to read, but where you think you understand them and you don't, and you're obviously out of touch, and it's embarrassing. I don't want to name any titles or names or anything, but that's a thing that I've noticed when I've occasionally just looked at a catalog where I'm like, who is that for? Like, the person that you're pandering to right now, not reading comic books and not going to with the thing that is obviously pandering to them, I wouldn't think. Yeah, or at least if they look at that, they're not going to keep going. The story is probably terrible. You didn't write that because you wanted to write that story. You wrote it because you're desperate to get that audience.
Yeah, we've consolidated everything into 2 categories, and we need to have that middle category again. Like, I miss the days where we would get an animated series every time we would get a superhero movie. Like, you mentioned that '03 Spider-Man series that was pretty much in continuity at the time. And then we also got that 2005 or 2006 World's Greatest Heroes Fantastic Four animated show for a couple of years after those movies were big. And we don't do that at all anymore. They're completely separate, and they're like preschool type shows.
Yeah, I mean, I think Marvel has done a couple things here and there with their like Disney cartoons that have kind of tried to not be too kiddie, but they just what little I've sampled, they end up just feeling kind of generic and like there's really nothing there. They did a Guardians of the Galaxy show like that I tried to watch an episode of, and it just felt inauthentic to me.
Yeah, like
the humor didn't really land. The characters just felt a little off. It was all very stale and kind of obligatory. And like, this has to exist, so we're making it. Not like we really have stories we want to tell, and there's like a passion behind the material to make this as good for a Saturday morning cartoon, or I shouldn't say that, but for a cartoon on Disney as the movies that Gunn is making, where he's trying to make them the best movies he can make them.
Yeah, Blue Dragon 5 says Iron Man Armored Adventures. Yeah, people are jumping at me. I just couldn't. My brain wasn't working. I obviously How to Train Your Dragon and Kung Fu Panda are great. I was thinking more like Boss Baby and the Croods and the Trolls movies. Like that's what DreamWorks is making now, and it bugs me.
Well, and what they're doing is so close to stuff Illumination is doing that I hesitated to throw out IPs because I couldn't remember which was which with some of it.
It's hard to tell.
Like those Pets movies.
Yeah,
Secret Life of Pets. I think that's Illumination, but maybe that's Dream. I can't remember.
And Sing, there's a Sing sequel out right now. Like they all run together for me.
Apparently, it's terrible, but I didn't watch either of those. I'm not.
Why is there a Boss Baby 2? What? Anyway.
I don't know. I think that got a TV show even. Maybe I'm thinking of something else. I'm not sure. And then that Super Pets movie just looks like more Secret Life of Pets.
I was so depressed when I saw that trailer in the theater.
That may be the first superhero movie I skip and never watch. I might finally be there, folks.
That could have been so cool. I was like, oh, I've heard about this, but I haven't seen anything on it yet. So the trailer came on, and I'm like, why is The Rock and Kevin Hart yelling at me? What is happening?
And I knew The Rock was voicing Crypto the Superdog, but I didn't expect it to just be that stuff masquerading as a Super Pets thing. Like that sucks because that could be great, and there have been some really cool Super Pets things in comics, and apparently the Crypto cartoon is decent. I've heard good things. I've seen clips and it looks fun. I've never really spent a lot of time with that show, but
Dermot McCauley says that Tobey Maguire was in The Boss Baby. I did not know that.
I didn't either. And here we were thinking that the man hasn't worked since Spider-Man 3 at all.
He's clearly making hits. All right, should we move on?
Jedi Knight and Bob the Hunter both saying, but you're gonna have to make a superhero rewind. That might be the place where I've quit, man. Like at the point where, I've reviewed everything, and I haven't had time to make that show lately at all. Anyway, my life is crazy lately, guys. Like I keep trying. The reason I'm doing other like quick, easy things that aren't that, you might be wondering, like, well, why aren't you making Superhero Rewind the times that you're making these other things? Because that takes time to prepare, and I haven't had it. I gotta watch the thing and hopefully take some notes, and at least watch it enough that I know it real well and do a little bit of research and stuff. I just haven't had it. DJ, and let me mention this real quick too. So I'm gonna work through the weekend, and then I'm gonna play things by ear for the next couple of weeks after that. I will at least probably do Captain Logan shows, and beyond that, I can't promise what exactly is gonna happen on the channel for the next couple of weeks. We have a bug infestation, unfortunately, at the house. We've got bed bugs, DJ, and we're having to have an exterminator deal with those, and we had the first round of that today, but we weren't told, so we had to leave the house for like 5 hours this afternoon, and I had to take my 5 kids and my 2 dogs and my cat, all with my wife, all out all day long, and that was crazy. Well, and by the way, it took us an hour to get the cat in her container, and she like scratched my wife, and it was a whole thing. Today was nuts, and
I'm sorry, I'm laughing.
That's okay.
Like a sitcom episode.
My whole life is a sitcom, dude. You don't even. I mean, the twins thing makes you feel like you live in a sitcom. And found out we had twins the week that episode of WandaVision came out, and we were just like, we were in a sitcom, like obviously. And if you walk into the front of my house, it looks like the set of an 80s sitcom. Like, we just do. We live in a sitcom now.
I'm just imagining you, like, with both you and Sarah each pushing a double stroller and, like, holding a cat carrier, and, like, and then, like, Jason has your 2 dogs on a leash, and you're just, like,
we didn't both
the
have to
streets.
push a double stroller. I mean, the 2 older kids are 3 and 7 before Jason. Like, but anyway, so we were not given good instructions about what we were supposed to do to prepare the house for the exterminator guy to come over, and there was a lot more we were supposed to do, and he has to come back at least a couple more times apparently, and so all the stuff we were supposed to do today we have to do now. So I'm gonna have to, like, massively deep clean my house, and I have no idea what kind of time I'm gonna have. So I'm almost certainly canceling once again my planned live rewind for Sunday, because I don't think I'm gonna have time to prepare for it, and I'm thinking about just, besides, you know, a couple live shows here and there to kind of keep things moving, I may have to more or less take off the next couple weeks so that I can work on that and just focus on it. Because, like, we have, I don't want to get into it too much, but nobody cares about this, but I have to do, like, insane amounts of laundry. We have to vacuum, like,
You have to vacuum the whole floor. You have to put everything up on tables and, like,
every
boxes and
day.
stuff.
We're
Yeah.
supposed to do that every day. I'm
That's
taking
crazy.
care of twins all day. When am I supposed to do that? Like, I literally don't have the time, you guys. Like, it's nuts. I did a random live stream the other night for an hour and a half with Austin because I just really felt like doing that, and that wasn't cutting into rewind time. That was cutting into sleep. Like, I just didn't sleep that much that night because I really wanted to. I needed social interaction the way my life is right now. And so anyway, I don't feel like I need to make excuses or whatever, but just in case people are wondering what's going on with me, that's what's going on. And like I said, I may have to take a little bit of time off. But don't worry, DJ. We'll still at least do this.
Yeah.
Because I've got that blocked out, and you know, my wife's out of the house for some of that time in that evening, so, like, I do have that worked out. But you know,
no worries.
I'll do
Whatever
what I can. I'll try to do a little bit of live here and there if I can. But anyway, it was just such a nuts.
It's crazy. All right. Well, let's see if we can. Oh, look at this. The next question's about bed bugs. So perfect. I'm just kidding. T-Edge 1.
There's no possible way.
That would be amazing. It is Tom. So
Sorry, guys. We'll
anything
try
goes.
to go a little bit more lickety split. I've been really taking my time tonight. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's a good conversation. But we're gonna speed it up. Will there be a episode 2 of the game show? And if so, will the cash prize accumulate each time someone doesn't win it? I love you guys. Awesome content.
If I felt like I could afford that, that's a great idea. I really like that. I can't promise that. That would be a mistake, because if Austin wins the game 5-6 times in a row, suddenly I'm gonna have to pay out, like, possibly $600-$800, and I don't know if I can afford that. I don't know if I can promise that. So yeah, probably not. But man, I love that idea. I do. I mean, that sounds great. But we will definitely have another show. That went wonderfully well, and thanks to everybody who. Of course, thanks to the contestants who participated, but also thanks to everybody that watched live and that commented after the fact and gave us feedback and stuff. Yeah, we will definitely do another one of those. I don't want to oversaturate it. I don't want to do it too often, but probably in I don't know, 6-8 weeks, couple more months, we'll probably come back and do another one of those. And maybe, you know, I'm wanting to do a bunch of Batman content in March. I had this thought today where I was like, the Batman's coming out. I'm getting more and more stoked for that. I think we should have a big month of Batman stuff in March. I think it might be cool if every Captain Logan show in March, we can come up with a Batman topic for the lead-in topic. That might be cool. But anyway, I'm not sure yet. I'm spitballing live because I've never done that before. I've never made the plans for the channel while we're broadcasting, DJ.
No, we would never do that.
But it might be cool if the Captain Logan, you know, self-indulgent round was about Batman that month. And of course,
Sure.
I'm not planning on usually announcing those, but that one I might. It might be kind of fun if we bring people on and they know it's going to be Batman, so like they're like really ready for it. I don't know yet. I'm not announcing that. That might happen. Stop announcing things. It might happen. I don't know yet. But probably March, if not April.
Cool. Yeah, I actually tuned in that night for the first half of that show. We were in our third Airbnb and we had just gone to a very, very fancy restaurant, and they kept bringing us stuff on the house because they wanted us to like Instagram and give it a good review and stuff.
Oh, crazy.
And they gave us this free. I've never had alcoholic
And they were
coffee
like, you
before.
can't have any more. You're not getting your phone out. You're not taking any pictures.
They gave us this like free on the house alcoholic coffee. I don't know if you've ever had that. It was amazing, but I had never had coffee in my life. It was the first time I had coffee, and it was like it was like with dessert. So it was like 9 o'clock at night, and we got back to the Airbnb, and I could not sleep because my body was like, "What is this? What is this caffeine stuff?
What's this?"
And so my wife passed out immediately because caffeine has no effect on her because she's been drinking it her whole life, and I could not sleep at all. So I stayed up till 12 that night, and I was just walking around the house and like listening to your game show and stuff. So thank you for that.
My wife passed out immediately. There was something in her coffee.
All right,
Had no effect on DJ. It's called caffeine.
T-Edge 1.
Hi, Tom.
With a super chat of 666.
Really angling. Oh, is this going to be Spawn or Dante's Inferno related or something? What is this? Go ahead.
Have you ever had a coworker or customer that you loved so much that you thought they deserved a hug? The kind of hug Superman gave Zod. End of Man of Steel. Oh.
Wow. That took a turn. I really didn't think that the 666 was going to be appropriate for this comment ultimately, because it was reading a little bit sappy, and then it turned into rip his head off.
Yeah, I went from sappy to snappy.
Snappy, yeah. Ooh, snappy. So anyway,
it seems like he had an experience today at work that is spurring this question on.
Occasionally, Tom's questions can start to read a little bit autobiographical. Emphasis on graphic.
For me, it would probably be customers more than employees. Just because I still work at a grocery store.
I just don't want to like be mean and throw shade at anybody, even people that you guys have never met. You know what I mean? Like, sure. I mean, I've had, not that I actually wanted to like murder on the scene.
Yeah, I would never snap someone's neck.
No, but I mean, obviously I've had dealings with people in public where I'm like, I need to get away from you as fast as possible on both ends, like as a customer or as somebody working somewhere dealing with customers.
I have always been I've always had big ears my whole life, and I went to a private school where we had to cut our hair super short, which I hated. So I usually have my hair longer now because I can cover my ears. And I was stocking the shelf at Kroger, which is a grocery store around here where I worked, and these two girls walked by and just looked at me and started laughing to themselves, walked away, and I heard them say Dumbo.
Wow.
I really wanted to punch them in the face.
Oh, I'm sorry, dude. That's rough.
So yeah, they're horrible. I hope they're in a ditch somewhere. But Thomas Ledbetter.
Wow. Yeah, let's move on, shall we?
Has our next 5. They weren't even girls. They were like teenagers. They're stupid. Teenagers dumb. Thomas Ledbetter, $5. Why does it seem like there are less well-known TV shows for preteens like Batman when there are shows for both little kids and older teens? So this came in before we talked about that, which is amazing.
We kind of got into this a little bit. We've forgotten that whole demographic, really. It's funny. It's like literature still remembers young adult as a category, and nothing else does.
That's where we get all our movies from.
Film does too, but only because it's adapting those books. That's about it. I mean, DJ, there's definitely some truth to what you said earlier about trying to get kids to grow up too fast. And I don't know. I mean, is it that we have less of an emphasis in the society these days on like the traditional family than we did when even I was a kid? Like, is it some of that? Is it like we're just catering to... Hear me out for a second. Are we just catering to the people that have the money? Where it's like, okay, we know that there are still children in the world. So whether they're in a traditional, and this is obviously not me throwing shade at how anybody chooses to raise their kids or what sort of a family they have or whatever. Just stating facts as I'm seeing them. When I was a kid, there was obviously a counterculture movement that was getting us farther and farther away from maybe arguably traditional values, or that just was not as interested as those, or thought that alternatives were fine. And then there was still a very, kind of conservative bent of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And where we're at these days, we're splintered with all of that like we are with everything else, right? So it seems like in the mainstream, with entertainment, what you're seeing a lot of right now is we still have a lot of stuff for little kids, because they can't buy their own stuff, but they have to have parents, whether they're single parents, whether it's a traditional family, whether it's like two men, two women in a homosexual relationship that are raising children, whatever it is. There's all these different kinds of family units now that we're selling to, and they all have children of some ilk or another, and we can sell stuff for little kids to them because somebody has to buy them their Christmas presents, right? And then we have, or take them to the movies on Saturday or whatever it is. And then you have people with jobs. Okay, people with jobs are not in high school anymore. Like, we don't think about that as much now. It's we're catering to 20-somethings now. It's like you start working when you are old enough to live on your own, or you're living with your parents, but you're either going to college or you've decided not to, and you have expendable income. And there's not really anything in the middle of that. And of course there is, but the assumption is those kids don't have their own money to spend, and their parents aren't going to buy anything for them. I don't know if I'm right about that, but that's the first thing that comes to my mind.
Yeah, it's interesting though, because we have all these streaming services but Disney's the only one making a play for families. Like, I know HBO Max has like that new Aquaman show and stuff like that, so maybe they're starting to get into it.
That does not look appealing to me at all, but yeah.
Well, and that's the big thing I was going to say is, like, animation has kind of consolidated all into one look. And unfortunately, it's a look that I don't like very much. It's that, like, simplified, very cartoony Steven Universe look, and maybe that just doesn't translate well to superheroes. They're trying it with the Aquaman show. We'll see what that looks like, but nobody likes Teen Titans Go.
Well, and maybe, I just thought of this, maybe I'm also not looking at it right entirely because I'm not thinking about desensitization. Maybe, or just trends changing. Maybe what I'm thinking of as not appropriate for even teenagers is now. Maybe the stuff I'm looking at as, R-rated or Adult Swim-esque stuff, maybe what I'm talking about as being aimed more at 20-somethings is actually aimed at 15, 16, and I'm just not thinking about it right. Or maybe part of what's happening is that over the last 10 years or so, the Hollywood machine has, networks and movie studios have caught on to some degree that they have maybe lost some of that generation, and they're not even trying anymore. Maybe that's some of it, what I was talking about earlier. Because Jason and his friends, like the kids he goes to school with, this is anecdotal, but not looking at a lot of TV. He watches stuff with me, but like they don't go home in the afternoon like I did and see what's on television, or even bring up something going on Netflix or HBO Max or Disney or whatever. They're seeing what the really popular video game streamers are doing, and that kind of thing. They're creating their own entertainment for each other. And so the really little kids don't have that because their parents are hopefully not letting them look at the internet as much. And there is certainly web content for them, but it's not like 24/7 constant streaming that they're looking at, right? And then you still have a generation that is young, but not so young that they didn't grow up mostly looking at mainstream Hollywood stuff. Maybe that's more of what it is.
Yeah, well, Phil, the issue guy earlier, like when we very first started talking about this topic, said a lot of that age group's media that they engulf comes from video games as well, and that demographic gets served well there. So it might just be like you're saying, where they're into other things besides TV.
Yeah. How many more super chats do we have, and can we maybe do a pre-written
Yeah, we have one, two, three, four, five, and I think T-Edge one is probably still in the lead at this point.
Okay. We are encroaching on 2 hours. We will try to answer all of those as well as we can in the next 12 minutes. So let's go ahead and do it. Here we go.
All right, you want to do a pre-written real quick?
Pre-written. Yes, please. Sorry, I was reading.
Right.
I was reading comments. Hi, I'm stalling. Good.
Daniel Davis, if you could have any superhero supporting cast in your life, who would it be and why? Any superhero supporting cast, so not necessarily from a comic or just anything.
Yeah, like, would you want to pal around with Foggy Nelson or Genki or... Those are the first things that come to mind. Obviously, there's plenty of others.
Foggy Nelson was the first thing that came to my mind for some reason, too.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because it seems like... I almost said that it seems like Marvel characters have more, like, friend sidekicks that don't put on a costume than DC. That's probably true, right? Just because DC had more traditionally, like, sidekick characters, so even though there's not as many, like kid sidekicks or, like actual honest-to-God sidekicks, a lot of DC supporting characters tend to also either be superheroes or eventually end up being superheroes. Like, you had this in Rebirth with Supergirl, and in that book with Lana Lang, where, like, she becomes Superwoman. It's like everybody has to end up becoming a superhero at some point or another.
Yeah.
I would probably, I don't know. The first thing that comes to mind is Superman supporting cast, just because, like, I like Perry White a lot, or at least certain versions of that character, and Jimmy Olsen can be a fun character, and Lois Lane is very often, you know, the best love interest, depending on who's writing her or who's playing her, so, yeah. I think probably that, just because, like, there's a real ingrained family there. Unless I can pick costume ones, and then I would probably take the 90s era Bad Family.
I don't know who I would can I take the movie version of Jarvis so it's not like a real person, but I do have someone to talk to all the time?
That's hilarious. Sure, you can do whatever you want to. That's a weird pick, but yeah, sure, if you really want to.
Yeah, well, I mean, it has to come with like complete integration in my entire house. Like, I have to have a fancy house, or else he's useless. He's just back to the old Butler version.
And then you're like, and then every day you go, okay, Jarvis, one of these days, buddy, one of these days you're gonna get an infinity stone, and you're gonna
in your skull.
You're gonna get cloned from a horrifying AI, and you're gonna get a cape and everything.
Yeah, and then a purple alien's gonna rip it out.
It's gonna happen.
Right in front of you.
All right, moving right along.
All right, John Ty.
Hi,
Do you
John.
think brand synergy works for comics getting new readers from the big two?
Do I think what does?
Do you think brand synergy works for comics getting... So, like, matching the movies, probably, like you were talking about.
Does it work for doing what? Like bringing in new readers?
For getting new readers.
It does not seem to. The numbers have never bared that out. And I would imagine it does it even less now, because there's too much vying for your attention just in the movie and TV space now. Even I can't keep up with it, and I review this stuff for my job. So I don't see how anybody is getting into superheroes now, or even has for just the last 10 years or so, and goes, man, I just can't get enough superheroes. I guess I'm going to have to finally break down and read comics. Oh, look, they're doing an event that's connected to this movie that came out. I guess I'll go look at that. Like, there's too much other stuff. Again, unless you just become really obsessed with one. And then I could maybe kind of see it, but I think what you're more likely to do is go back and see what influenced and inspired the thing that you just watched than what's going on right this minute. Do you agree with that?
Sorry, I was responding to someone in the chat. What were you saying?
Oh, that's okay. But that's what I always used to do. Like, I never, and of course, I've collected comics forever, but I was only reading current starting, and again, I've stopped recently, but I was only reading current starting back in 2010 or so. So when I was a kid, I didn't read new comics. Occasionally somebody would buy one and give me one. And I was real big into Death of Superman like a couple years after it happened, but I was never on the pulse.
Yeah.
And when I would see a movie or watch a TV show or something that would spark my interest in a character, I never ran to the comic shop to find out what was going on right now. I wanted to see what inspired that stuff in the first place, like what it was adapting. And I think that's I can't be alone on that. I think that's part of the reason that the synergy thing doesn't work as well as those companies wish it did, is I don't know that people watch movies and go, what's happening right now with this character?
Yeah, that's interesting, because like I said earlier when I talked about this, I didn't think of things as adaptations as a kid. Like, I just thought of superheroes as like characters, and you can use them in movies, you can use them in TV shows, you can use them in comics. I didn't like point one to the other, so I didn't think of it as like going back to the original. I don't think, maybe I did, but I think I was just like thinking them as other stories that I could read.
It's funny,
with the
I
same
did
characters.
with certain properties, but not with others, because I would watch the 90s X-Men show, and I would see titles from those episodes in comics I would see at comic shops, and I would be like, oh, they've adapted this material, or I would have like, you know, like a encyclopedia or something, or just, I don't even know if I had that back then, but some comic that would have a breakdown of characters and stuff, and I'd be like, oh, these things that I watched in this episode happened in comics. So I thought for the longest time that 90s X-Men was verbatim Claremont, and that they gave it to you wholesale exactly as it was in the comics. That was a rude awakening when I found out that was not exactly the case. But I didn't think of Batman the Animated Series as adaptation, because they were, first of all, because it wasn't as serialized, and they were, you know, a lot of one-and-done episodes, and it seemed like they were just making up their own stories. And they were, but they were subtly borrowing from things, or sometimes they would directly adapt a story but do it its own way, like Laughing Fish or something. But I didn't understand that back then. So yeah, I never thought of that as adaptation.
Yeah. It's so hard. I think,
and also because they would create characters in that show and stuff, which X-Men didn't really do.
I think kids are just so much more familiar with the idea of adaptation, IP, and stuff nowadays than I was thinking about as a kid.
Yeah, there's a naivety that's lost, that, you know, the kind of, I hesitate to say innocence, but that makes the whole thing, I would think, it's hard to imagine that it's as much fun, or that there's as much of a wonder with it, but I don't know. I don't have that perspective, because I'm not living in the world where, as a kid, where, you know, words like IP get thrown around like they do now, where everybody knows what that means.
Mm-hmm. Senior Sticks, $2. It 'tis the age of the villain for DC a la Cena show.
Yeah, I'm sure he's talking about Peacemaker, right?
Yes.
I have not watched that yet. People are saying great things about it. I will eventually look at that. I can't get excited about it right now. I don't know. It's just it doesn't look like my bag. That last trailer, it looked great. I haven't been in the mood for it. I don't know. I will eventually look at that. But yeah, Suicide Squad was the Suicide Squad movie, I should say, was a movie that I really disliked the first half of, and then it suddenly turned around and I was like, oh, this is really good. And then I got to the end and I was like, I don't ever need to see that again.
Yeah, I still haven't seen that movie.
It's fine. Like, people are losing their minds about it. It's just not my thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't care about that movie, and I heard from a mutual friend of ours who's been on the channel that show, he loves that movie, and that he said that show was awful.
Oh, so, interesting.
But that's just.
It's not Austin, opinion. Is it?
No.
Because I thought he was really into that show, but
he only watched he'd only seen the first 3 episodes at the time, so
okay.
Take that for what it is. It's one person's opinion. Chewbacca's Lover,
Hi.
$5. The continuity is not the problem. It's the fact that comics suck. It's the fact that comics suck. Plenty of us got into comics with a lot of history, and we're fine. It's other issues. So he just doesn't like current stuff at all.
Oh, sure, yeah. No, and I know what he's referring to, or I assume he's talking about like political pandering and that sort of thing. Yeah. Well, and we were talking more at large how to get into the medium as a medium, not necessarily current. And I wanted to take this conversation in that direction because we've talked a lot about in various points where I was actually reading current, like what would it take to get people interested in what's going on right now. And I wanted to talk more about the medium as versus other mediums, really. But you're right. That's definitely put a lot of people off. And like I said earlier, like whatever your politics are and however you feel about some of the ideas and morals in happening, in those stories, it really does feel to me like there are a lot of books being like pushed at just demographics that aren't there by people who do not understand those demographics.
Bob the Hun.
Hello,
Bob. MCU films are essentially family films. They're PG-13, but they're glorified family films. Certainly not adult films like Singer, X-Men, or Nolan Batman.
No, that's true, but that's kind of the big exception, and that's a lot of why they've taken so much of Hollywood's take, right? It's like we need more variety, and it needs to be outside of that. And that's also, I think, one of the reasons that a lot of those movies have, in my opinion, gotten too safe and it's gotten too formulaic. It's like we know what works for the families that are seeing these films.
Yeah, but I think that's also a desensitization thing, because that's a different genre than Pixar. Their families go to them, but I don't consider them, because I wasn't desensitized when I was a kid, but I don't know. I still think about them like, when am I gonna let my kids like family? I think of as like my 3 and 4-year-old could watch it. They won't understand it, obviously, but then my 7 and 8-year-old could like it, and then the adults could like it.
But our standards might be different because there are plenty of people that, and I'm not judging how anybody raises their kids.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that we look at it differently. There are Marvel movies that I would wait until my kid was 8 to 10 to watch. And partly just because I wouldn't think that they'd really care that much, with certain movies. But,
Yeah.
like, you have one of the opening scenes in Civil War that was kind of a torture scene where my wife was like, I don't know about Jason yet at the age he was then. Like, maybe we'll have to wait a while to let him watch that. And Austin, pardon me, I've been doing so much content with him lately, but DJ is...
He's like a sixth child to him.
But DJ is talking about the kinds of movies where hardly anybody would have that question. Nobody's going to be like, I don't know about Wall-E at 10, like, or at like 6,
Yeah, that's what I think of as a family film. But like, I understand that people, and we haven't talked about this, but I have this question a lot because it's hard, because the first phase of Marvel is the darkest phase, but that's where it starts. So if you want to show them them in order, it's weird. Like Incredible Hulk and Iron Man are some of the films I would wait to show them.
Yeah.
But then do you go ahead and show them Avengers and kind of like, it's a weird thing.
Yeah, and Age of Ultron in places is a little darker than some of those other movies, and like even some Phase 2 stuff, and Winter Soldier, I forget where that falls. Is that Phase 1 still? I don't know.
Yeah, and like you're not gonna show your kid Eternals like when they're little. Like...
No, especially because they'll fall asleep. And I'm not saying that movie's boring. I like that movie.
No,
if I'm 5, I don't know if I care. It is 3 hours long.
It's really weird. I don't know.
Maybe if you cut it up and told them it was a miniseries where you're like, tonight we're gonna watch episode 3 of Eternals.
Yeah, it's weird because they settled into more of a family.
That's how I'm gonna show that to my kids when they
later.
My other kids when they get older. I'm gonna tell them Eternals is a TV show, and they're gonna believe me. How easy would it be to re-edit Eternals and make people that hadn't seen it think it's a Disney Plus show? Think about it. A lot of those Disney Plus shows are 35, 40 minutes long, and if you break Eternals up into those chunks, it's 6 episodes. That was a Disney Plus show. You just take that font and the second episode, it says previously on. You don't even have to go through the trouble of saying Eternals. None of those shows give you the title. They just go previously on. Why is the word on in there? I don't understand. It should just say previously. Because they previously on and you don't say the name of the thing. Why does it say on?
Never thought about that, but that's a great point.
I complained about this somewhere earlier this week too, but I think it was on that live show I did for you now. I can't remember. I'm having to repeat myself so more people get to hear me rant. That was my rant for today.
Wow, dual platform rant.
A dual platform rant, yeah. Anyway, what else?
All right.
We're almost done, yeah?
Yes. Why does it have to be chickens, right?
I don't know.
$2.
I still don't know why it had to be chickens. And I'll never understand why it had to be chickens. And you can't explain that to me, and I don't want to have to watch that movie again to think more about that, but I guess someday I'll probably have to.
I love that that's his name, and I also love that he has 5 question marks and exclamation points at the end of his name.
Why?
But yes,
because that's turned into the new because cheese, right? Do you remember why it had to become? Do you remember why it had to be chickens?
I was there. Yes, I heard your rant. I have not seen the film still. It was even playing on the airplane on the way to Mexico, and I was like, nope, still not worth it.
Well, not at all. You want a pleasant flying experience.
Well, I watched Ridley Scott's medieval movie. What's that called?
I don't know.
It was not a pleasant experience.
Oh, maybe you should have watched. Let There Be Chickens.
It's a good.
That's my new subtitle for that. By Venom. Let There Be Chickens.
It's called The Duel. It's a very, very heavy movie to watch on a plane, but it was a good movie.
Was it good? Oh, okay. So it wasn't unpleasant because because it was bad. It was unpleasant because it was supposed to be unpleasant.
Yeah, it was unpleasant because I was watching a sexual assault happen on screen while there's people
in an airplane. Yeah, and that's uncomfortable too, where you're just like, I don't.
Yeah, The Last Duel. Thank you, Madman.
It's like if you got caught watching porn, but worse, right? Where it's I'm watching this horror. Yeah. Imagine trying to enjoy your flight and you had to watch Scorsese's Silence, and you're just like devastated.
I always seem to do that on planes, though. I watch really serious movies for some reason. I watched Do the Right Thing on
an airplane. Stop
to
it.
Oregon, and I was like, all right. Why does it have to be chickens? Writes, what 2 great foods would you never mix together? Well, chickens.
Yeah, chicken
goes with everything.
With most things, yeah. I mean, that's become my main base. I don't eat red meat at all anymore, so it's chicken every day. And it goes with most everything. But yeah, I feel like I've been asked something like this before, and I always get on the spot, and I can't think of anything gross enough combination-wise. Like,
great foods that don't go well together.
Yeah, and they have to be great foods too.
You're a sushi guy, right?
I am a sushi guy. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. So.
Sushi and pickles. There you go. Probably wouldn't do that. There might be a sushi that goes okay with a pickle.
Yeah, that's a vegetable at least.
I don't know that I'm gonna try it, but it's possible. Do you have a good answer?
I
Make sure the food you say is a great food and that everyone agrees with you. I just failed that test.
Well,
Sushi and pickles, great food. I would never eat either of those things separately. Says half or more of the audience.
I mean, we can all agree pizza is amazing. Everyone loves pizza. Pineapple, my absolute favorite fruit, but I would never mix those 2 things together.
See, I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to go at me with that.
Disgusting.
You know what? And come at me, bro, because I can't even eat pizza anymore. So, like, I'm still getting this crap from people like, oh, Cap, you like pineapple on a pizza. Like, where have you been? I haven't eaten pizza in 9 months. I don't eat cheese anymore. I'm done with pizza. So, like, let's stop having the pineapple on pizza conversation. I don't even eat that anymore.
Both great foods, terrible together. All right.
Both great foods, great together. Rips apart my stomach, not eating it anymore. Moving right along. You guys know far too much about me now.
Yeah, you have no personal life.
I don't. I have no personal life.
Why would you want it? You got the Geekvolution family.
It's emotionally broadcasting naked on a regular basis. It's just everyone knows everything about you.
Captain Logan Naked, coming to you in 2023.
Don't announce that! I mean, don't announce anything, but don't announce that! Alright, what else? We gotta get to After Dark pretty soon.
Alright, going from why does it have to be chickens to I have a daughter! He asks.
And that makes it okay. Everybody say it with me. Okay, and the question, I read this. Go ahead.
He says, when is it okay to break the law?
When do you think it's okay to break the law, DJ?
Oh, well, when you have a daughter, of course.
Oh. I was going to say when it's 2001 and you want music you're too cheap to buy. That's what I was going to say.
We
all did it. It's okay to break the law. Yeah.
It's so true, right?
Like
none of
diamond-studded swimming pools, they don't grow on trees. Anyway.
None of us thought of it as breaking the law. It was so weird.
No.
We're just like, no, it's just LimeWire. That's just where I get my music.
Yeah, precisely.
That's amazing.
The serious answer is when the stakes are too great, and particularly when somebody's life is in danger or something. Lesser of two evils kind of thing. You could wind up in a situation where the right thing to do is to break the law. Keeping in mind that what is legal is not necessarily what is morally correct, and vice versa. So, yeah.
Yeah. But I think
that's great. I actually like the way Chewbacca's lover worded this. He says, when the law is wrong, too. And that's another one. Just because it's put into law doesn't mean that it's, necessarily correct. You can see yourself in a place where you go, yeah, I'm going to have to boycott that and hope I don't get arrested. I can't, in good conscience do with that.
The answer is when you are the law.
That was one of those impressions that was both terrible and perfect.
Exactly.
Okay,
Just what it needed to be. All right, Jeff Jerf. Oh, hey!
Hi!
Jerf E. Patron. Is that the real Jeffrey Patron?
Is it?
Is that what he's going by?
Because we haven't seen.
Or is there an imposter?
We haven't seen Mr. Patron in a while, and I assume he's just busy, or got tired of the sound of my voice, which is totally fair. But no, I've talked to Jeffrey every now and again over Messenger, but I haven't seen him at a show in a while.
Yeah,
is it actually Jeffrey?
It is him. It's his picture.
Hey, it's good to see you, buddy.
He says, "Howdy, all. Hope you two are having a swell evening.
We are,
and all in chat too. Yay!
Thanks,
so
man.
Happy to hear from
it's
you,
good
man.
to see you. Pop into a show sometime. It's been a while.
He was big on the channel when I first started, and I used to talk with him quite often in Messenger and stuff off the...
Yeah, super nice guy, and knows
he's
a
the best.
ridiculous amount about music, and he's a lot of fun to talk to about that. Really insightful. And I've met him in person twice. He's come over to my house twice, just on road trips. Wanted to come see me. We went to a TMBG concert together, and it was lovely.
Oh, it's good to see you, Jeffrey. Hope you're doing well. The names are on point tonight.
They are.
Next up, from $5, we got Be Moved.
I think it's the same guy doing all of them.
He just keeps changing his name and writing
Be
a new
Moved. He's just, all of his names are things that I complain about.
That's hilarious.
Cap's Rain Team names. Okay, what does Be Moved have to say?
He says, "Oh no, the multiverse of inside jokes has opened up."
Oh God, no.
Anyway, what's your favorite / most hilariously bad Be Moved moment / attempt in media?
Oh, I thought you meant specifically just movies that were so bad you couldn't believe Sony had the audacity to write Be Moved at the end of them.
Oh, so just like emotionally manipulative moments in film
The big
or in
one
media?
is
That's cool.
almost any time we're supposed to think that a character is sacrificing himself or herself and you know that that person is going to live, that always drives me nuts. The most recent, most egregious example of that, and Austin likes to make fun of this all the time, is Bugs Bunny in Space Jam 2. Yeah, he's gonna be okay, guys. He's Bugs Bunny. And also, you can't kill cartoon characters. They're cartoon he ain't got dip, it ain't Roger Rabbit, he's gonna be fine.
Well, the most egregious of this for me in recent memory was Aunt May in Spider-Man. Like,
oh, sure.
Yeah. No one cares about this death scene. Like, it's the most obligatory, like,
I mean, be careful. Apparently people did, but I didn't.
Even my wife, who really enjoyed that movie, she's kind of the target audience for it, and she was like, yeah, I didn't care at all about Aunt May. The scene was pointless. It was just like, ugh.
No, it's too easy.
Yeah, you didn't earn it. It's not a real character, and
yeah,
and it was,
she was expendable.
Trying to be manipulative.
It was a red shirt like, masquerading as Aunt May.
Yeah,
I said it.
Red May did not bring the tears.
I mean, a little more so in Homecoming. There was certainly places to take her, but you needed one more movie before you attempted what they did with that movie. You really did. Some of the problem with that is not actually the fault of it as much as it is the fault of 2 being a side movie that didn't get us anywhere character-wise. I've never made that point. I have made that point 1,000 times. Go ahead.
Can't mention no one.
Anything left? We're already at 2 hours and 10 minutes, and
one.
we've got to get to After Dark. And we got to tally up and find out who gets to pick the mini marathon for tomorrow night.
Yes, so let me ask this, and then while you answer it, I'll tally up. So 5590 ERS.
Hey, what's up?
Haven't seen you in a while. Favorite Marvel/DC imprints? And then he says Vertigo, Elseworlds, Ultimate, 2099, Wildstorm, etc.
Interesting, because I don't think of Elseworlds as an imprint so much as like an occasional line. That would be like calling What If an imprint, but I guess it acts more like it than What If. I just never thought about it that way, but I guess that's right. Yeah, of the way you're describing it, 2099 is certainly up there. I mentioned earlier Marvel 2, or MC2 or whatever it was called, with Spider-Girl. I don't know what else they did, because that was the only thing I ever read from that line. I was like, is this a cross continuity thing where there's other stuff in it? I don't know, but I liked that book, what I read of it. And like I've read a couple things I liked in Vertigo, but I'm not like a Vertigo guy or anything. And then a lot of Marvel imprints I just don't really know, like Malibu and stuff like that. And then more recently, you had Vertigo replaced with Black Label, and a lot of the Black Label books, I don't understand why they're Black Label, where it just... And some of them are even in continuity with the rest of DC, where it's like, I don't know why this is Black Label. Except we're just saying, hey, kids, don't read this. And, like, newsflash, most of their stuff kids shouldn't be reading anyway, mainstream. So I don't know. So, yeah. I don't have any major stuff that I love that are particular imprints, I don't think.
All right, so... second place was Josh Galisano with that $20 super chat, and then in first place we do have T Edge 1 with 2166 because of that 666 super chat.
He won it by pennies on the dollar. Actually, I forget what you said. I missed the exact number you said before that.
Yeah, it was close. It was about $1.50 difference.
Oh,
okay.
Okay.
Well done.
All right, cool. Well, Tom, you get to pick, and thanks a lot, by the way, everybody who participated. Chewbacca's Lover just put in another $2 super chat, but I don't think he was in the running, right?
No. He did give us some tonight, though. But
okay, thanks so much, everybody, so very much. So you get to pick between Danny Phantom, Superman TAS, MTV Spider-Man, X-Men TAS, Batman Beyond, and HBO Spawn. And feel free to put that in the comment. And Tom, you don't have to do another super chat, buddy. We'll see it. But
or just tell us in the Discord or something.
You can let us know right now so we can announce it. Well, I'd love to know now, but if he hasn't decided yet, I'll announce it tomorrow after he's told me about it, certainly. But anyway, let's go ahead and deal with that last super chat real fast. And
all right, Chewbacca's Lover.
Give us about 15 minutes, and we'll jump over to After Dark. And I need to check and see if Dan is still coming.
It's a little vague. We're gonna have to decipher this. He says
he is going to bed, so he's not going to be there tonight. But hopefully we'll see Dan again soon.
Yeah, Dan the man. I loved it. I tuned in, watched some of the. I think I watched the whole show that you guys did, and he did a great job.
He did a great job.
Fantastic. But yeah, Chewbacca's Lover, $2. Do you think MCU goes further than Roger Rabbit?
In what way?
Respect. I don't know. Maybe
further than Roger Rabbit.
Maybe he's making a statement that it's more cartoony. I know he's not a huge fan of at least the Spider-Man movies. I don't know how he is on MCU. So,
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what that means, or if there's some connotation there I'm not getting.
Goes further than Roger.
Sorry, Chewbacca's Lover. I'm not understanding the. Do you think MCU films are further than most 80s? I don't know what further means.
Further, Cap.
Further. Oh, they're further.
see, they're further.
Regarding what exactly?
I want it further, sir.
But you don't understand. I want it further, sir. Plush says probably in adult content. Madman says censorship and child friendliness. Everybody's trying to unpack this question.
I can see that we're talking about like family films. Maybe he's saying like it's more adult than the 80s stuff.
Oh, I see. Chewbacca's Lover, Roger Rabbit, and Back to the Future are about as violent and risque as them. Yeah, I mean, risque-wise, I would say Roger Rabbit's definitely got it over the MCU, but these are very strange things to compare that are made for very different reasons.
Yeah, I haven't seen Roger Rabbit, but it's kind of more made for adults, right? Like it's not like not saying like an adult as in
But
like
it is family
raunchy, but
entertainment in the
it's
way
like
you're talking,
about
the way you were talking
like
about it. I
about
think that's,
gangsters and stuff.
but I think that's maybe what he's getting at is that
Yeah.
it pushes some envelopes, but is still family entertainment, and maybe even more so in a lot of ways than the Marvel movies, where there's not anything glaring that would make you go, "Ooh, I gotta wait to show that to my kid." But the things where it's pushing envelopes, it's pushing them farther than the MCU would. Maybe that's what he's getting at. I think I generally agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will show my kids Roger Rabbit because I was not exposed to it growing up.
And I'll show my kids either of those things. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching, everybody. Hope you enjoyed this edition of The Captain Logan Show. We'll see you again next Thursday night at 7 Central for another one. Right now, we're going to take a 15-minute break or so, and then we're going to jump over to Patreon for a Captain Me After Dark, and it's going to be me and Brandon and DJ for at least as long as he's able to for a bit. We were going to have a much larger panel tonight, but everybody else had better things to do. So
They heard I was coming, and
I
like,
went.
"Ugh,
I think
that DJ
it's
guy."
because I broadcast too late in Dan's case. Although Austin might end up showing up because we're starting so late. We'll see. He has to work late. I don't know what that means. But anyway. Thanks a lot, folks, for watching, and we will see you again real soon. I was Captain Logan, and that was DJ Martinez.
Bye, guys. Good to be back. Had fun.
Later, folks. Oh, and real quick, I'll also say, we don't know yet what the mini marathon is tomorrow night.
Yeah,
so,
I think Tom left.
Tom did not give us that. So I'll find out from him and make a post as soon as I know. Bye, folks! And we're out!